Solik.
Here.
Vice President Ann Rice.
Here.
President Mary Lincoln.
Here.
Director Bob Pavel.
Here.
Director Bill Kellogg. Here.
We're all here. Public communication is first on the agenda. Anybody wish to speak? Y'all can come forward.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Special day today. But off of the topic, I want to mention something that came up casually just a few weeks ago when we were doing a tour of the garden with the Fire Safe Council principal officers there. It was casually mentioned that maybe this garden would be a good place for something they've thought of for some time and don't have a place to do it. And that's a sample of the side of a building that would show what fire-wise landscaping would look like. Sort of maybe 12 foot wide, maybe a corner on or something, maybe a roof, a gutter that's clogged up, a gutter that has anti-clog on it, a plant that's not supposed to be next to a building, the kind of plants that are okay next to a building, a part of the roof edge that has soffit vents, a part that has the new kind of anti-ember soffit vents, and on and on and on. They're thinking if somebody here is amenable to this, there's probably free materials and free labor that would be willing to do this in that section back there that says under future consideration. Thank you for your time.
Well, we might have questions. Okay, so how do you think we ought to proceed with this? I know we can't make decisions, but we can discuss briefly. Because yes, I was the one that told you I could almost certainly get all of the labor and materials free. Would you like us to just agendize it in the next board meeting and then...
Would you like to discuss it?
Go through the committee meeting.
Yeah, just agendize it.
After we get some more specific feedback from the Fire Safe Council,
okay.
Sort of their mental, this would look like, and then put it on a drawing, and then get it to you for the agenda.
Good.
The
That's
other suggestion might be if you'd like,
Go
put
through
it on a committee relations
because we handle the garden.
perfect. You could kick it off with them, work in conjunction with
What's
him.
on that committee?
Yeah, because that is a very good idea. Thank you, Ward.
I'd like to point out there is a row of native grasses on the other side of that sign. Hopefully it survived and green up this winter right along the fence.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay. All right, then we get to go to closed session, conference with labor negotiators, and then also conference with legal counsel for existing litigation. We will be back in a bit. Was given to the negotiating teams in regards to the above items. And let me see, since we still have several people missing, we'll wait until they all get here.
Is that for both?
Yes, both items, yes. I did say plural, yeah. Good morning, Keith.
Is this person known yet?
No, I don't think so.
Not hired yet?
Gentlemen, ladies.
I know that there's some...
Hi, everybody.
We would know the party.
Hi, Larry.
He needs the computer.
Yeah, because it's up
Pretty
there.
good.
They have to.
Yeah, actually going better than I thought.
This person's going to be the
Yeah,
first.
still not running.
Right,
but-
they'll hopefully be a good person.
Yeah, walking
person,
pretty good.
Person, right?
Thank you for asking. Appreciate it.
Okay, I think we're all here, so we will begin. When we are ready, Ed, it is yours. Number 5, I think, is what. We are on.
Yes, sir. So the under unfinished business, the water quality technician position, as we've previously discussed, that should be in your packet, the current language. No changes from the last time we looked at this. We've within the union negotiations, we have had lots of back and forth about this particular position, and we're bringing it to the board for approval at this point. It has been initialed and approved by the union. That's in your packet. And it's an important position. It's a somewhat of a change with the existing DSO, distribution system operator position, and it now focuses more on the water quality technician job duties, in particular sampling in our distribution system and analysis at the water treatment plant. And this was is certainly supported by the union and by the plant, and from what I understand by the distribution folks as well. More of a division of labor and a focus more on treatment. And my vision going forward for the district is certainly a little bit more clear division and assignment of duties, treatment, and T&D, transmission and distribution. Not to say there won't be overlap. There will always be overlap and cross skill set work involved in this. Anyway, short story long, we bring it to the board for approval at this point, and again, union, staff, and management approves for this to be approved by the board.
You have a question? You can ask him.
My only comment is just based on the job description.
Yes, sir.
This person's going to have a lot of public contact.
Yes, sir.
Giving tours.
Absolutely.
Handling customer complaints. I mean, it's more than just a technical job. It's a job that's going to require a lot of public contact. And I'm just looking at desirable qualifications, and you have the technical things. Are you looking to train this person as like a CIO, an information officer, or a spokesman type position?
That's very insightful, Bob, and I agree completely that there's certainly a large component of customer interaction, customer service interactions, and we will be filling this, or at least looking initially in-house to fill this position, and we're definitely focused on those skill sets for the position. As far as an official information officer, I see that more as a responsibility role for the Mickey in the IT position, because the community development, or not community development, community outreach is sort of a new role that we're segueing into her responsibilities. So she's presently already doing a lot of those activities on the website and audio, video, a lot of the community outreach stuff. That being said, that is going to be an important component of this job, and we're fully aware of that, and so we're going to look at the filling of this position in that light.
I mean, the only thing I would ask is if he's going to be doing tours, he or she is going to be doing tours, some of those people are going to be the press, and the person should be basically PIO trained. There's a lot of different schools you can send them to.
Absolutely, and training has been a big point of discussion in between Kevin and myself and various members of the staff, and in recruitments of positions that we've held since I've been here, and we're going to do a big focus on that, and also training for the board. I was speaking with staff, or the JPIA, is it Aqua JPIA folks yesterday. And they offer a great deal of training, outreach on site, including board training for core responsibilities of the board, not just the California law required of sexual harassment and ethics, but board responsibilities, so we can present a more professional image to our district and our public. But yeah, training is hugely important, and we'll certainly focus this person for further training in that arena. Good point.
If there are no further questions, open it to the public.
Thank you. I didn't hear an answer. Is this a new position, a new hire? or the transfer from the previous job description?
Yes, it is not a new position. It is we intentionally did not use the word reclassify because there was some heartburn from the union, quite frankly, with that particular word. It is a change in the job description, a change in the job title, but the DSO position transitions to the water quality tech position. There's no gain or loss, no added position here. Is that your question, Ward?
That would help. Let me just, a little history here. Lauren Harvey's not here. What he would say was, do you remember when we had 30 people here and now we got 40? There ain't no difference in what the customer gets. Why do we need so doggone many people? Thank you for your time.
Again, Ward, we're not adding a position here. Okay.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for action.
I make a motion to authorize revising the distribution system operator job description and duties and changing the title to water quality technician and approve the proposed job description.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Number 6. Oh, by the way, from the public, I think everybody pretty much knows these gentlemen, but their names are backwards, so please don't call them what it says there.
It's the computer.
Anyway, Kevin and Ed, it is yours.
Yep, I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint real quick and we'll start off the budget workshop.
As we get started, I'll say a couple words. This is Kevin's work, 99.99% of it. I have reviewed it, read it, and we've had lots of conversations around various components of the budget. And I'll have a couple of comments as we move through it, some of the things that caught my eye that fit my vision for what I see the district being as we go forward. But Kevin's done a wonderful job with this, so I'll shut up and give him the floor.
Having a hard time finding that first page, are we?
There's a whole bunch of linked documents in here, and so I haven't.
I don't think you need to read the entire thing.
Are you
No,
going
I'm
to be
gonna
able to?
I have a little PowerPoint that I'll go through and
Okay.
walk through the
Thank you.
highlights.
Yeah, I'm waiting
Okay.
for it
It's
to
just
come.
I'm sorry.
That's the reason I was asking. We're having a hard time
What's my-
finding that
my
first
laptop?
page. Yeah.
It's going to take a few minutes. So I'll just kind of give you the highlights, but the majority of the budget, a lot of the operational items are pretty standard. They're not going to change too much from one year to the next. Salaries have gone up from one year to the next just because we've had a lot of vacancies and that we're budgeting for full staffing. So that's one thing that's going to be in there. Obviously, we didn't have last budget cycle. We had no general manager salary. Well, we had no CFO salary actually in there. So that obviously is a change also. And there is no additional staffing that is budgeted, but we are going to discuss additional staffing that would change the budget. So that would be an increase in operational expenses if we do change any staffing from this year to the next. The main proponent, though, as you're going to see, and which probably will take up the majority of the time, is capital. It's just capital projects. What we're looking at. I know in the past, one of the minor capital, just people explaining why they need certain items. Minor capital is still a big dollar figure associated with purchasing. So we'll discuss that. But I'm just going to walk through some of the highlights from prior year to this year, kind of show some of the cash projections. Sorry, I shouldn't have hit linked. Update the links. It's just creating this nightmare. But you can't. Once you get in it, you can't get out of it. And also, I already found a few little mistakes in there too that I'll change. Sorry for any typos that were in there. It's been kind of hectic. Obviously, I'll just kind of give you. It's been hectic for my last probably 6 months trying to get this thing accomplished. Being that we were bringing that on board, and that there was that, and then when Christy left, so we have an office manager position that's open right now. So I've been kind of I went from 3 hats to 2 hats. So things have been a little hectic, but I know this is an important document that needs to be put out. So any suggestions, changes that you see out there, please let me know, and we'll make sure they get incorporated in the final document. Ed's already brought a suggestion that I'll bring up when we get to it. And then, like I said, I found a few little items that I'll point out that will be changed at the final document. So here's some of the financial highlights for the current year. We actually had a cash increase this year of $918,000, almost $1 million. If you remember back when we set the rates, we did set the rates that we were going to try to reserve $700,000 per year, and we actually reserved. So cash increase, aka reserve increase, right? $918,000 this year. That's great for us. We budgeted $700,000. Our actual was $918,000, so we had a variance of $209,000. We actually spent more on capital this year than what we actually budgeted, based on that we had the spillway that we had to do, inundation study that we're doing, and we had an increase in our budget from $500,000 to about $750,000 for the B-Res design. That obviously is a net zero increase on the cash because we are getting that paid for through debt proceeds. But there was an increase in our capital than what we budgeted. Operational expenses were almost right on the nose. That's $36,000 from a $5.5 million budget. It's pretty dang close. Revenue budget, that's where we were able to really gain our big jump, $363,000 from one year to the next, and that's just based on I didn't budget the increase that the board approved in the November budget, so that was a big one, and then our consumption was up from what we budgeted, so there was two bumps there that really helped the district. And our debt service was actually down, and that was due to the fact that we're going to refinance the debt this year. So there was some financial savings there. Current budget. So we're currently budgeting $20 million in expenditures. 5.3 of that is in operational, and about $1 million in pipeline. As we go through this, I'm going to talk about changing up the budget next year. So our current budget and budgets all throughout the past have all been cash budgets. But on a financial statement standpoint and an audit standpoint, we always do everything on an accrual budget. So taking an accrual financial statement and trying to convert it to a cash budget and comparing those two is very difficult. So my suggestion for the next fiscal year is actually we're going to budget on an accrual basis so that we can take our audited financial statements and look at our budget and have a good, clean comparison. It doesn't mean we're going to get away from looking at our cash balances and what the budget's going to do to our cash, because then you can create kind of a cash flow statement that says, here's our accrual budget. If we go through this, here's our cash flow statement to see what our end cash flow statement is. But it's a much easier way to compare actuals to budget.
I support that, by the way. Kevin and I have discussed that at length, and it's the accounting I'm used to, but it fits utility accounts.
Yeah. And so when you look at operational and pipeline, you kind of combine those two. Those two are kind of our operational, even though pipeline is something that was always kind of broken out in the past. It really is truly one and the same, because that's kind of our core operations. Core operations obviously are treatment, administration, maintenance of the system, and pipeline. So those two I'm actually to kind of lump together to really show what our operational expenses are, because the majority, a lot of that in that pipeline is salaries and budgets, because The nice thing about on the financial, when we go to the financial side, we actually capitalize quite a bit of our labor into our capital costs because we're doing our own capital expenses. That is unique for us that we're able to do that. If you go to the city or the town, they're not allowed to do their own capital labor. So if they do any type of capital project, it has to be actually outsourced to a contractor. So the town, if we were the town, we couldn't go out and do our own pipeline because that is actually not legal under the California law, that we can't go out and do our own capital expenses. If we wanted to put a new roof on this or build a courtyard, we couldn't build a courtyard with our own forces. We'd have to actually contract that out. So a lot of our labor is actually capitalized when it comes to it, that we're actually capitalizing our own labor.
So you're saying that is the advantage of capitalizing it is because it can be paid by debt proceeds?
No, it's
what are you talking about?
that it's that you don't have to go out. You don't have to go out. And you could your salaries and benefits are encumbered no matter what you do, right? It's the opportunity cost. We didn't go out and put in. We didn't go out and maintain our system because we went up and built the courtyard, right? It's an opportunity cost. You're losing the opportunity to maintain your system, but you're actually able to go out and build the courtyard. So what we can do is we have the ability to then, instead of paying that money, even though we're paying the money no matter what, so we don't have to go pay a contractor to do
the savings.
It's a savings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It gives us the freedom. It gives us the option. Do we want to go do a capital project, or do we not want to go do a capital project? Do we want to pay for it or do we want to do it with our own crews, or do we want to use a contract laborer or a contractor to do it? Gives us that ability to really ebb and flow with how we want to operate our system. Where if you're the municipality like a town, you don't have that option. You can't tell your crews, "Hey crew, instead of going out and sweeping the streets, go put a new roof on the town hall." It's just not an option.
Okay.
Prevailing wage, where does that come into it? Are we subject to prevailing wage? Anything that we sub out?
Anything we sub out, we are subject to prevailing
whereas
wage.
in-house, we're not.
Correct.
Right.
We're able to use our own labor forces and not have to. Well, we hope we're paying prevailing wage to our own people, but we don't have any of the reporting requirements or any of that issues. Our capital improvements, 12.95 million, debt service at 963,000, and we'll get into the capital improvements in detail here in a minute. Revenues, we're budgeting 19.9 million. Water sales is the majority of that at 8 million. The other majority is, and I have it down here, is debt proceeds. So if you look at our capital, our true capital projects, your net is about $2 million. So because the debt proceeds are that portion that we're getting paid for the SRF, so the BRES is getting paid for by that. But I like to show it as a separate item so that it's understood that we're actually going out and borrowing for those portions of money. Other income is outside water sales that we sell to Del Oro. Yeah.
You're showing us that half of our revenues, so-called revenues, is borrowing money.
Correct, and that's only because
that's really a revenue count. That seems rather strange to me.
It's a increase in your cash, and that's the reason why is because I want it to be transparent with our capital improvement projects. So if you don't show, you got to show all your capital improvement projects at what you're putting in, then you got to show what you're borrowing to.
But wouldn't that be handled under capital improvement rather than put under a revenue thing that gives you the impression that the district is receiving $20 million to operate with? And
it's only presented in the PowerPoint presentation. It's clear in the budget that it's separate. It's separate from that. Other income is outside water sales. Any type of work we do, the cash work or work we get reimbursed for through putting in new pipelines or private pipelines or meter services or backflow prevention, monies from the lake those type of things. We get 1% of the property tax revenue, or a portion of the 1% property tax revenue, 240. Facility fees, those are your capacity fees of $25,000. Investment income, interest, revenue, or gain loss.
You just mentioned, what are facility fees?
Capacity fees for new meters.
Okay. I noticed that we're spending all the capacity fee money now. It's not going into the capacity fee account. It's zeroed out.
It goes in and out. So what's done, and we'll talk about this through the budget, but what was discussed.
That used to be a reserve account for only pipeline work and stuff.
Right. So what we're doing is we are still spending it on pipeline, but we're spending it every year on pipeline. So
you're not building any reserve in the reserve account.
The reason why I don't feel it's prudent to build it, because instead of building a reserve, instead of taking money and putting it into a reserve that you guys have the option of how you want to designate it, you would then be building a reserve that you have no discretion on how you want to spend it, other than it must be on a capacity related fee. So instead of locking your hands to what you want to do with that cash that states it only can be used on capacity related fees, why not spend that cash already that you're doing capacity related infrastructure and put the remaining cash that you would be using in a designated reserve?
Well, I'll go back in history. $1,200,000 worth of capacity fees went into the water treatment plant fiasco on engineering studies, because it was figured out that we could wasn't restricted to it. We got a way around it. So since then, we haven't put any money into the capacity account. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, and looking back, we had capacity related jobs that could have been eating up that on a yearly basis instead of restricting our hands to that. So I feel it's prudent that you keep your reserves in ability where you can use them how you see fit than restricting them to a seat that they're only used for certain projects. Oh, this is kind of tiny, huh? And I can barely see it. This is just the detailed summary of it. And let me get my pointer out here. So going back to Bill's concern, this is kind of the summary of the budget, and then it breaks down all the revenues. I don't include the debt service in the revenue portion of it, or the debt proceeds. Oh, this one didn't update, right? Well, let's just go. We're going to skip this one because it didn't through my updates. It didn't update the right thing.
Right, because that third column only reflects the 1 month of expenditures.
Right.
And the old,
so someone haywire there when it updated on my PowerPoint presentation. But if you look on page, just real quick.
5.
6, or no, sorry, 5. You're right. That's what this page is kind of reflecting, and it reflects. It breaks down your revenues in more operational revenues. Then you have your expenses, which we walk through: the operational expense, the pipeline, debt service, and some of the other kind of minor expenses that we have. Remember, PFD funds are fire-related funds that we increase, decrease. So a portion of that pipeline that we're doing over at Crestview, which was 50% paid for by PFD, will come out of this fund. So you can see that we're drawing that fund down in our own operational expenses this year. And then you get into the debt proceeds. So there's your debt proceeds. That's for the borrowing of the funds for the BRES. And then you get into your major your capital projects.
I might make a suggestion on the actual 2017 to 2018-19 budget.
Yeah.
The change, that calculation, if you do it in percent increase or decrease instead of percent of the amount, it would make more sense. It would be more helpful.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do that. I'll make that change before it finalizes it. That's an easy change.
Good point.
And then
are you not able to pull up page 6? Because that's actually a little bit, well, never mind, I think it's clear because it's the same thing, but it's a little, it drops out that 1 month of expenditures. The third column is really almost, doesn't do any good.
Then going,
You want still be on page 5?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Right.
Sorry. On the 2017-18 actual for Save a Can, there's no money there. Is that an expenditure? Under expenditures, but projected for this budget is 10,000.
Oh, that's a good catch.
I thought the Save a Can was inflow, not an expenditure.
Save a can's right here.
The one under expenditures.
Yeah, so there should be expenditures there.
The
And
next
it should
page
be equal to
is
that.
better, and it does have one.
Oh, okay.
I'll make that change.
And then on debt proceeds, I think I figured that out. I went
Yep.
back, at the end, I saw where that money came from, or what it was paid to. Okay,
See, it was 8.
sorry. While we're on that, I should ask my questions.
I like it. Thank you. I'm going to get back to the from current slide.
Yeah, but I just have a question. Our pipeline, is the Ammon Street project part of that 900 and...
Nope.
It's not.
A portion of it is, and we'll get into that more, but we're going to do laterals off of it. And the other portion of it, and we'll get into more of it, is that we've lumped in on that pipeline number the remaining portion of the AMR job.
Oh, I see.
So we have a Birch Street and Black Olive that we're going to be doing pipeline wise, and we're going to have our crews focusing on, and we're going to have outside agency helping us focus on our AMR finish up. Both of those are included in there because we're using so much of our forces for those 2 capital projects.
Okay.
Yeah, Kevin, just one minor thing. On your slide, you've got investment income, 20,000. Is that just simple interest from bank, or do you actually have money invested somewhere?
We have money invested, and it's been just kind of what we have is it's called Local Agency Investment Fund, LAIF, and it's run by the state. And basically, it's liquid money. With the downturn from where the interest rates were, I didn't feel it'd be prudent for us to lock up money for 2 years at the rates that were being offered, like 0.5%, when we were maybe getting 0.45% through LAIF, being at fully liquid. The rates have just started to spike back up. LAIF has actually spiked up pretty well, where we're getting 1.5–2% out of that liquid funds. So we have started looking into now investing more money into other products. The board did approve us opening up what we call the Cal Trust Fund about 6–7 months ago. Those interest rates weren't going really great either, and now they're starting to bump up, so we're going to start putting monies over into Cal Trust, and we have some muni bonds that we bought that are fully insured that are giving us about 3%. So the other thing too is our reserves were so low, it was kind of hard to lock up funds for any type of certain time, long period, because we didn't know when those funds were going. Now that we're starting to see an increase in our cash, we are now investing more into longer terms. One thing, just a reminder, we can't go further than 5 years for any investments, and we have an investment policy that states that there has to be certain criteria for us to invest in products from a rating standpoint and a percentage standpoint. So you can't have 100% of your funds over in corporate bonds. You can only have a certain portion of those percentages.
So would this be called return on investment or just interest?
It's interest and gain and loss on investment. Pretty much interest and dividends.
Okay.
That's truly what it is. We don't want to really see a gain loss on investment you can see it on paper. There's always paper losses, but we're not buying products to buy and sell. We're buying products to hold to maturity. So you don't really see interest in dividends. Challenges for the district. I think water rates is always a challenge. I think that we've seen what if we don't handle our water rates correctly, what the backlash can be. And I think that it's prudent for this district to continue to look at water rates, no matter if we're in good times or in bad times. I think it's looking forward, and you'll see it when we get to our capital, is we have a district that's aging. and I think that's aging pipeline infrastructure. But I almost want to change that to aging infrastructure. We have a treatment plant that is 25 years old. That was great 10 years ago, and we didn't think we needed to do too much maintenance, and we'll talk about it with a new position over there too. But now it's 25 years old, and you're starting to see that things are breaking down all at once. So we have challenges when it comes to an old dam.
My thought on water rates is that we actually should reduce the fees we're charging to help us get our customers using more water and thereby increasing our income. But we also have down our permit water rights, and we're using a low amount of water, and we're trying to get our water rights approved for levels we're not presently using. We used in the past, and we're in a political climate statewide about everybody looking over their shoulder for water. So my feeling is that we need to do something about helping our customers increase the use of water in the district in a conservation manner. The garden is an example of it, where they can use the equipment and so forth to cut down on what they're doing, but they can have a bigger garden, bigger lawn, plant more ornamentals, do things that they're not doing, and at the same time it'll help the district prosper and be able to go. I don't think we need to increase water rates because I don't think they're sustainable. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. Sustainable. And the story I use is that all you have to do is get in your car and drive around the district and start looking at homes. Don't go to the high rent district, but go around the rest of the place, and you start looking at the percentages of people on fixed incomes, Social Security and others, and a little bit of rate increase on water then cuts down on quite a bit on the use because they simply have to do without something else. So I would think we need to give that some thought. I don't think the solution is we're going to raise rates because we need to overdo this, we need to do that. I think we need to lower rates where we can increase income and water use in the district, because basically we're selling water and the service of it. So that's my pitch.
Some of the other challenges I think that we're seeing, and they kind of work together. We got a B-res replacement, and we have wildfires. I think those are kind of the two things that we're looking at. I mean, we've seen what wildfires will do and the destruction that will come about, and the reliance that communities rely on potable water or just water for fire suppression. State mandates, again, aging infrastructure. We have a state mandate right now to look at our spillways, and what we're finding out is we have aging infrastructure within those spillways.
What's aging?
Our spillway.
Dams and spillways, yeah, both.
I didn't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah.
You need to speak up. For
Trying.
Nothing else. Speak into your microphone. Give us another recording.
He has aging ears. So.
We have aging ears.
So I've been told I'm getting old.
Don't believe it.
State mandates NPDS permit. It's getting the NPDS permit together. Magalia Dam, state mandates. Looking at our spillway, you're going to have a presentation eventually of what was discovered on that phase 1 spillway investigation. What problems do we see, and what kind of money do we want to throw at band-aiding something versus going after and replacing the problem? So we are looking at some challenges, truly, from where we're at. And to conquer some of these challenges takes water rates. Does. I mean, and that's a hard pill to swallow, but it does take water rates.
There's also things called grants, and I don't see anything in the budget talking about possible income from grants, and there's new monies coming in the state.
So I'll give you.
We can qualify for all of them.
I'll give you my philosophy on grant budgeting. I never budget for grants because it's so unknown. That if a grant comes in, it's like you never budget in your own personal life to hit the lottery, right? But when you hit the lottery, man, I know how to spend that money.
Yet the biggest improvements we've had in the pipe system since I've been on board
Let's
have
get
been
'em.
grants.
Let's get them. So I don't budget for them because they're just so unreliable to budget for them. If we get them, then I think that's a shot in the arm for the district, and that helps. It helps with water rates. Helps you not to circumvent those water rates. And we're out there. We're looking for grants.
I have maybe you just answered it. I had a question about how active the district is in seeking grants.
Yeah. So
Do you have a grant writer that's doing this?
We don't have a designated grant writer, but Jim Passanisi undertakes that activity primarily. Although we all constantly look for grant monies, and that's always a question that we ask our consultants, who are happy also to help us find available grant money. They generally do have staff that focus primarily on grant writing. We had a presentation the other day on the spillway investigation that's not yet completed, the study, but we got a preliminary look at it. And that was the first question that I asked is, what available grant money is out there? And we've already gotten some email exchanges back and forth as to what might be available. So yes, to answer your question, we don't have a full-time person, but we're constantly looking for grant money. Yes, ma'am.
How many grants have you applied for in the last 12 months?
Jim, you might be better to answer. I know at least 3.
Well, it's been ongoing, actually, been multiple, taking a couple of years, actually. One large grant, about $3 million.
In the last year?
Rehab.
Okay.
But it's taken forever.
Oh, I know that's good.
Also, some of the SRF grant, loan money has potential principal forgiveness. So one could look at that as grant money. It's money we don't have to pay back. But yeah, as far as specifically grant money, we are constantly beating the bushes. And I had some luck back in Kentucky, for instance, with a dam project back there that we procured a 2/3 matching grant from NRCS, USDA. So there's monies out there, and you beat every bush. We're definitely focused on trying to find as much grant money as possible.
The NRCS has just come out with some more grants and programs. You just have to qualify for them.
Yes, sir.
If we had more farm accounts, we'd have a better chance.
And just from the pulse of California, when it comes to grant funding for water supplies and water districts, the majority of the money is going to the Central Valley. They have groundwater issues that they're trying to clean up with nitrates. There's towns without any water at all. Tons and tons of groundwater issues associated with the Central Valley right now that a lot of the funds are going towards. When it comes to OES monies, they seem to bounce around quite a bit from disaster to disaster to disaster, and we've already seen disasters happening this year that those funds are kind of moving towards. And then for Prop 1 money, the big water bond money, every big project, and I just got a letter that the governor's trying to get federal funding for it, but the big boys are trying to really snap up that money for big storage projects or projects that are going to increase the already reservoirs out there. So it's not like we're not trying to get it. It's just we look so much better as a district as a whole than these other districts that are saying basically we can't even get water to our customers that's healthy. So that's what we're trying to fight against to try to get monies up here. So total revenue, so about $9 million budgeted, and the majority of that's water revenue. Fixed service, 5.2 million. Prior year, 4.8, 4.9. So I don't have a huge increase on that. I know that we have approved that we could go up more than what we've done this year on our water rates. That'll be brought towards you like we did last year in November, but I didn't budget for that. I wanted to budget conservative. I don't want to budget that I am assuming that you guys are going to increase rates. The rates are held flat for this budget. Quantity charge, again, conservative budget, quantity 2.8, last year $3 million of and hopefully we're right back to where we were last year. So. Operating expenses, we have salaries and benefits of 3.7 million, materials and supplies of 800,000, utilities 286, outside services of 455, insurance 100,000, and board expenses 61. That includes election expenses for the current year.
I was wondering that. Yeah.
The only thing that you will see an increase is salaries and budgets from prior year to this.
Benefits, you mean?
Salary and benefits, sorry. And that went up about 250,000 from actuals to current. Majority of that's just basically new hires. Full staffing. Pipeline projects. So about $1 million of pipeline projects. This includes, again, like I said, the Birch Street project, Birch and Black Olive. Quite a bit of that is salary and benefits for our own personnel in there, and for the AMR replacement. Total debt service, $963,000. We've done a really good job of. If you look back 5 years, we had debt service of $1.8 million. 3 years ago, we had debt service of $1.2 million, and now we're under the $1 million threshold. So pretty good job of bringing down our debt service. Everything is 3%, is less than 3% interest rates. You're not going to see that for a while.
You want to plug in 11 million to that.
Yeah, it will be when it
11
kicks
million
in.
will be in probably 3 years, if that, maybe 4. So you remember with SRF, you don't pay any funding, you don't pay any debt service.
You've got it in the budget now.
Yeah, so
$11 million. That's not 3 years from now.
So just a reminder, you don't pay any debt service on your borrowing until 18 months after the project is complete.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense for us to budget debt service now that we're going to be paying for.
It is in the budget for $11 million. I'm sorry.
So we're receiving the debt proceeds, but we don't have to pay them back until 18 months after the project's complete. And now we get into the capital. So here's all of our wish list. And I prioritized it, probably not to the chagrin of some of the folks in the audience.
This is page 9?
Page 9, yeah.
This is, and just because it's prioritized 1, 2, and 3 doesn't mean that it can't be priority 1. The district budgets capital, but it doesn't mean that all this capital will be expended, because every time capital is approved, it comes back to the board. The only thing that is approved at this point in the capital, let's see if my highlighter's not working, that you've approved is going forward with, not even that, the design, which has already expended almost 99% of the BRES.
Yep.
The water rights permit, that has not been approved to go forward. Almond Street Pipeline, we've only had a design portion of that approved. That's not been approved. That's a budget item. Process water recycle project, a portion of that has already been expended. So you have approved a portion of that to go forward.
What does that entail exactly, that $100,000?
It's for the NPDES permit renewal.
All right.
So I should change that completely. It's been the process water recycle since we started,
right?
Even though we've changed to an NPDES permit renewal.
Uh-huh.
Well, there is also potential for a more scaled down version of a project. It depends on what the permit
outcome is. Yeah.
The outcome of the feedback from the regulators are.
Yeah. So I'd say 40,000 of that 100,000 has probably been approved through you guys through the contract. The remaining portion there is for, in case, like Ed was saying, if there's additional items that need to be done. One item that we're assuming we'll probably have to look at the ponds in some way to increase freeboard, if nothing else. Who knows what else might come out of that, but that gives us a little bit of lee room. But again, it's a project that that you guys will be here to approve before we do anything. The tank rehab, that'll have to come to you as a construction cost. And then everything from down below that, again, the board has every option to move, let's say, relocate 42-inch water. Just because it's in priority 2 today, it can be priority 1 tomorrow.
Yeah, because we haven't really done that, no.
Nope.
No.
But I prioritized these because I was looking at cash flow.
Right. Okay.
And again, these were the challenges. Challenges are aging infrastructure. All these things in the treatment plant upgrades, all of them could be priority 1. I mean, if one thing goes wrong, it could all be priority 1. And then the minor capital, which we'll talk about. So if it's okay with you guys, I think that maybe we'll start to spend some time on capital and to explain why we're looking to expend the capital and which each project entails. So I'll start with water rights permits. And Neil can help us on this. But I think everybody's kind of up to date on where we're at with the water rights permits. We're setting up a meeting down in Sacramento with Paula Whalen and with De Novo, who is our engineering firm, our environmental engineering firm, to meet up with Ed and to figure out where we go forward, where we're at, and what we did in the past.
I'm wondering about the first highway project up there, Clark Road to Wagstaff.
Yeah, we'll get.
It doesn't make sense. Clark Road runs parallel to Skyway.
Is that a typo?
Well, it
They intersect
Clark
at the
does
top.
intersects
Yeah, at the
intersects Skyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's from
yeah.
it's from that intersection down to Wagstaff, right? The first time I read it, I had to read it twice, and I go, "What?"
That's don't all roads intersect at?
Yes,
right.
of course.
Up there?
There's that choke point up there.
That's right. The choke point the county doesn't own. So this is a kind of a placeholder. Who knows what additional requirements we're going to have? And again, this would be a process for the EIR to be restarted, to be reissued, and for additional comments to come back on the EIR, and for us to go license on one of our permits, and for the extension of the other permit that's outstanding.
I am glad to hear that these minor capital projects are not in concrete yet, because I sure got a question about a couple of those. So
None of them are in concrete.
Yep.
It's all on paper. So, Almond Street Pipeline, I think we're all up to speed on that one too. Again, the town is doing a major overlay and underground work all the way through Almond Street. We felt it was prudent to be ahead of the curve on them to get in there and replace that pipe. It's aging infrastructure. This, again, was not one of our projects that we looked at last year to be as a priority. It just became a priority once we heard what the town was doing. So, again, we're trying to ebb and flow. This budget is an ebb and flow budget.
Have we tested the pipeline there?
Yes,
Does it have leaks in it, Keith?
yes.
Quite a few?
Yeah, it has in the past. We ran a test with our new leak detection equipment a few months back when this subject came about. And with a complete reconstruction, steel pipe for almost 3,000 feet, galvanized service lines, yes, it's not at the top of our leak list, but there's enough bad history with it, with a complete reconstruct, new asphalt, a lot of underground going in, to take that chance that it'll be okay for a few more months, so we won't have to get in there in the near future. That'd be a bad idea.
Is that, do they have low, I remember years ago that part of the town had low water pressure. Is that still the case?
It's not bad there.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not bad there, but that pipe has been there a long time, being that it's all steel and galvanized service lines for a reconstruct and not wanting to get in and in some cases getting our hands slapped very hard from the town if we had to cut that pavement to make the repairs. Yeah, it's very much needed for everybody's sake. They're going to take all the electrical overhead, everything's going underground, storm drains. I don't think PG&E's doing anything or much with gas, but all communications are going to be buried along with the pipe.
Sounds like we have to do it to protect our own interests.
Yes,
They run all that equipment.
I agree with that one, yeah. We'd be remiss not to do it at this juncture, yeah.
Thank you very much for the explanation, Keith.
What Keith did, I'll add to Keith's comments. Are we not doing some peripheral stuff around that as well?
Yeah, Nick, you want me to talk at the podium so everybody could hear.
She wanted you to.
I was trying to mind my P's and Q's over there in my chair, and I'll try to make this quick. So Almond Street from Elliott south to Pearson, it's approximately 3,000 feet. That's what we're proposing to bid out to get that done because time is in the essence. Right. Okay. In that neighborhood, we also have an old steel main on Birch that runs in front of the fire department. Approximately 450 feet, okay? On Black Olive in front of our old shop, we have a future stub looking north around Cedar Street, another approximate 500 feet of pipe our crews can do on Birch, Black Olive, and I won't bore you with details, but we have what we call the alley that's going to be about 300 feet with only 3 or 4 services, but we can clean that whole neighborhood up. We can get rid of some steel 6 and some steel 4. They'll be fairly quick jobs. They won't be too expensive. They're off the beaten path. They're right up our alley for what we do. We won't have huge traffic issues, and we talked about getting on that in the spring to get that pipe in, let's say approximately 1,300 feet of pipe to get rid of even more steel, which is always advantageous. We'll get rid of more than we're putting in to upgrade that before the town has their contractors come in. We want to get that done like we need a contractor to get in on Almond to get in and out so the rest of those folks can come in and that project for everybody can run as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, they'll just be able to tie into what you've done there.
Yeah, they're going to leave us. Dan Neal and I walked that for about a month ago. They're going to supply stubs for us. It doesn't really matter at this point if we go in first. We'll lay up within reason to where the stubs will be. Let the contractor come in or vice versa, but we will have connection points right there to make that all work out together. So it will be a lot of pipe put in that area in a short amount of time, and it'll benefit. There's a multitude of reasons why we really can't afford, in my opinion, not to do that.
Keith and I believe Neil, in particular, I'm sure Jim Ladrini was involved, but kind of scoped that out, and in conjunction with the city project, this is very well thought through, and it's exactly what I would have suggested we look at is, whenever there's a big project going on, look at what we can do in the periphery around that and, piggyback.
Yeah, absolutely. And being that we didn't have and still don't have a lot of time with once the town was able to get their funding to do this, time's kind of the essence. It's not something that we could say. Some of these others, we can talk about them at length as much as you want as far as what we know we need to do in the future. We have time to plan for those. When these things come up, we have to react. But it's a win-win for everybody involved, literally everybody, all utilities, customers, business owners. We good?
And I think it fulfills the desire, I think, pretty much the full board, that is, we keep replacing pipe. Keep going, keep going. Always
in one fashion or another, absolutely. Right. And there's places where we fit that bill for sure to get that pipe replaced, and there's others where sometimes you got to call in other folks to do that because that's what they're geared for.
Yeah.
My 5 minutes up?
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
It.
Thanks, Keith.
You're welcome.
We got rid of the salt shakers, so you don't have to worry.
Yeah. So, spillway investigation. That's kind of a placeholder. That number can be smaller or larger than any of those numbers. That's kind of a scary number there. Based on that, we have submitted our phase 1 report with DSOD. They're holding it. We're waiting for them to comment back. We had Gentera here last week to meet with Ed and give a full breakdown of the phase 1 report, what came out of that phase 1 report, some of the items that we're looking at in phase 2, based on the phase 1 report, that there might be voids in the concrete, even on Paradise spillway, which that was one of the big issues with Oroville. The drain plugs being clogged up, some water intrusion, is that true, from both sides? That we have runoff from both sides and water intrusion onto the spillway.
I would characterize the Paradise, what I understood of the findings of the phase 1 report for the Paradise portion, to be more minor, certainly, than what we're challenged with Magalia. That being said, we want to do our due diligence and take that to ground and complete that process and make sure that our primary source, of course, is well protected and well constructed, in good shape. So, and Kevin will probably talk a little bit about Magalia, but obviously we have much larger challenges there, and
we know that.
And we had a lot of conversation around, if and when and how a project should look, and Band-Aid versus full scope, and how that might be funded, et cetera. So it was a great presentation by Gentera. It allowed me to get up to speed and also impressed me with their professionalism. I was very well impressed with what they do and what their staffing is and their credentials and capabilities. And I think we're in good hands with what we're asking them to do on our behalf.
How much have we paid them to date?
$390.
A little over 300,000.
100,000.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they're in their contract. I think is almost 99% paid.
I thought it was like $395, $385, something like that.
With Magalia, as Ed had mentioned, we discussed that Magalia has issues other than a spillway. It's got design issues. It's got spillway issues. It's got dam issues. And so I think this board is on the precipice of making a very big decision and a very large decision about what they're going to do when it comes to Magalia. Because, go ahead.
Years ago, we agreed to the solution was replacing the dam, moving it upstream, and building a new dam. And since then, we've had estimates all over the place on what it would cost, but felt we had there was no way we can rescue the old dam, and maybe the county had wanted it as a roadway or something, as they already have. But that would mean major overhauls of pumping stations and all of that, but a new dam above it, and that would be something for a long-range plan, and obviously you'd have to have outside funding from the state somewhere.
Yeah, Bill, that was presented in pretty good depth during the presentation, and as Kevin alluded to earlier, there were multiple potential solutions, scenarios, and we actually brainstormed around some of those and gave Gentera something to chew on as far as perhaps re-looking at some of those details. But I think that would be best presented to the board by Gentera after the Phase 1 report comments come back, or sometime between now and then, and give you guys
my comments were just meant to say that the board, past boards, has looked into this.
Yes.
And that was the basic thing that was come up with, without no concrete expenses, no decisions, just someday that might be the solution to.
Yeah, and that history was shared, as you put it, Bill, with us at that presentation, but it would be beneficial for the board to hear back from Gentera once we get between Phase 1 and Phase 2.
Yeah, I think that'd be excellent.
I know how we can get the county to pay for it, or at least help us. That is, tell them we're going to take the road out, and it'll take us 5 years to get it back in. And they're going to say, okay, we're going to pay for half of it. We need the road now. So anyway, we'll deal with it.
My point, though, is that, and Bill alluded to, it's a long-range plan. It could be a short-term plan because we are under mandates to do something with that spillway. And is it prudent for the district to throw money at a spillway that is, is not worth a dink because you're band-aiding something that is not worth anything.
Yeah, the whole dam is substandard.
Right. So there might be a pushing point here that says, do something. Well, what do we want to do? Do we want to fix the spillway or do we want to fix the dam? That's a big decision. That's a long-term plan that might be made in the short term.
Be sure to
Maybe the state would give us more time if we went the way of the reconstruct or the fix.
But then again, time is always given if you're moving forward in a direction.
Right.
The Bureau of Dam Safety won't let us touch that thing. They tell us it's unsafe, and they won't let us make any repairs to speak of. When George wanted to widen the spillway, when we put in the Magalia bypass, they had us put the dirt back, and they looked at the center of the dam, and it was moisture still, and it's unsafe, and they just said, forget it, guys. So I wouldn't even contemplate any kind of repairs to it. You just go.
There's a number of scenarios, Bill, and one of them would be a partnership opportunity with a third party that might find some beneficial use for the actual water that might be discharged from a raised dam, for instance. And so, you don't want to overlook any creative solutions and partnerships. So
would you discharge the water or store it?
Raise the dam.
Raise the dam.
Raise the Magalia Reservoir?
Yes, sir.
With all new.
Yeah, all
Start
new,
from
a
the
new
beginning.
dam.
Yeah, not that
A complete
Yeah, it
reconstruct,
would be an abutment to the existing, and then an increased height further back, but higher, and so you would capture more water.
What I talked about,
Yes,
the
sir.
new dam.
Yeah, it's called I think they called it the full solution, but there was a twist to it. We added the twist, and we'll see. It's really just conversation at this point.
I think you're doing well to investigate it and all those things, but
Yeah.
you just,
But I'm just thinking of funding, trying to be creative in how we might fund
did you
it.
check the,
You can't do a project without the money.
are
right?
they looking into the earthquake?
That's part of yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yep. B-Res, I think we've hammered that one pretty good, unless you guys have any more discussion on what that project entails and all the good stuff on that. We are still prudently working on getting right-of-way access on that Skyway, so we're not resting on that.
It's a challenge, but we've made some progress recently, Neil. I feel like we might have found the original entity that claimed the deeds for the railroad way back in the day, and that was maybe not, but we might have, and that would be a great place to start.
And then tank rehab, that'll be coming to you this winter to rehab the C tank, I believe, right?
Yep, just like it says.
And then we have two other tanks that Jim would like to also rehab, and we've tranched those out. So we've gotten reports back on which one's the worst and which one's the best, and we're going to try to work those into a tranching scheme. Does anybody want to fight for any of their projects that I've prioritized?
Unless the public needs to know we're up to date, because we know that there have been reports, and we have said tentatively verbal approval to go ahead and proceed.
Yes.
So next.
So we'll walk through the priority 2 items. Neil has identified 3 projects from the pipeline projects that he feels are the highest of priorities, which I prioritized just 2. I didn't put all of his prioritized pipelines on there. And that each one has, most of them have wildland fire positive impacts, and we got those identified from their intersections and on which road they're on. So if you have any questions on either one of those, you can ask Neil at this point.
time down the line.
And then Jim's identified quite a few items that the treatment plant needs upgrades on. And I can let him discuss those, but those again have been prioritized as two based on cash flow for the current year. There might be items there that we might be able to take off and work with and kind of work through them in the current year. You might see some items come forward to get us ready to do some of these upgrades. Some of them might be computer upgrades at the treatment plant. And Jim, do you want to fight for any of your projects?
We need to do them all.
I told you.
I got a comment.
None that would be deferred or eliminated from that list.
I have a question on...
One of them is a 42-inch raw water pipeline, $375,000. That's moving a pipeline all around up there at the plant. It was shown to us on our tour. And all I've ever asked for is that we strengthen the supports underneath the 42-inch line. There's two concrete pillars. You could put whatever kind of strength you want in there, and everything would still work, and it would not cost $375,000.
Jim, if you have comments, would you?
The only comment really I'd like to make is the grant. If you look at right now in running for the Cal OES FEMA grant includes the relocation of the 42-inch pipeline, includes the generator replacement, and includes, in part of the BRES project, the pipeline and the pump station. So we'll see in terms of timeline, I hope that in early 2019 we might actually see if it's in, if it's destined for us to get this grant, we might see it in early 2019. As far as the priorities, I've given Ed and Kevin a priority list of the treatment plant upgrades with the justification of each project in a detailed list. It's a document that I was hoping you would have seen by now. I think it's for some reason it's maybe too controversial to look at, I suppose. It's not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not. It should be a point of discussion. If capital is part of this big discussion today, that I believe that the list I prepared should have been provided. So you could see what I have. I can't, it's difficult for me to regurgitate justification and description verbatim from
We
a
have
long
that, Jim.
list.
We can pull it up.
So, every project there is important. SCADA is a comprehensive upgrade. It's not just even though we have a very stable SCADA system, it's time to bring it up to new standards.
Jim, are you staying with the same operating system in SCADA?
Well, we would probably stay with Wonderware, but we're looking at other options. And Wonderware is certainly what we've invested a lot of our time and we have a skill set to actually help do some level of programming in Wonderware and tweak things if necessary, but a lot of our instrumentation needs to be incorporated in this project. Have I helped bring up some questions in your mind that you could ask me?
Yeah, the only thing, and in the interest of time, because each one of these is kind of a separate item that will have to be dealt with later, is there a chance that we could just pull up something like this and between the board's questions and the audience's questions, then proceed to the next? Because we've got 65 pages and we're on page 9. But, I mean, is that bad? Because there again, the board has many of these. We already know where they stand. And things like this, instead of rehashing all the pluses and minuses of a specific project at this juncture, we can just go ahead and allow where it is. And if we know, where the board's aware, that we can pull something forward or move it back subsequent time.
That was my mistake, Jim, not getting your table and your list before the board for this meeting. That's my fault. Kevin did just leave the room because he couldn't pull it up on his computer to grab that on a thumb drive, but we can move on to other stuff.
Let me just
come back.
Okay. I finished.
Sure, okay.
Put this to bed. Ed has really had, like Kevin was saying, we're juggling hats. This list that I prepared with the prioritization of these projects is something that Ed and I and Neil and Bill, we all need, and Kevin need to sit down and together and hash it out for a couple hours, and then so that has yet to been done. It's just for the lack of time.
Yeah. Well, for our benefit, it's nice to see what approximately they might be. We're not deciding on any yay or nay on any specific project today. These are just, here's what we're looking at.
This list could have shown the priorities that but those are my priorities.
Right.
They're not, they really need to be Ed's.
Right.
Well, they need to be shared priorities, Jim, not mine or yours.
Thank you.
Right.
They're for all of us to decide.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Ed would make the final recommendation to the board.
And are you saying that you think that this document that we're trying to find right now will help us answer questions so we...
It'll give you all the detail you need on description of what each one is and the justification for its need.
Okay.
I'm confident. I agree with Jim. I'm confident it will help the process, and we'll get that, if nothing else, distributed to the board, and we can agendize this in a future meeting. The reality is, Jim, that all the projects made it to the budget. That's the most important thing.
Right.
Identify the needs, and then we can prioritize and implement a schedule working together, and we'll agendize that in a meeting very soon.
Perfect.
And then the ones that were from Neil, are those explained also in detail in the back, Neil? The ones, Pence to Fickett to Stearns and Skyway Clark and Skyway Longview? Are those also in the back or was those future projects?
Future.
Were those? Yeah, okay. So they were explained.
I believe they are page 72.
I think so,
okay.
I think I remember reading that.
Me too. Okay, good.
Pretty sure they are. There's like a page for each one with a schedule.
Dan, I'll stop. I'll cut down on my comments. I didn't think I was going to ask this many questions. To begin with, I know what we're up against, having done this before.
Yeah.
My take on the budget is usually it's the most boring thing I have to sit through all year. So,
what I would kind of like to see as we proceed here is let's just go one page at a time. Who's got questions? Hit it, keep going.
Do we want to finish the minor capital first?
Sure. Yeah.
Since we're on that page. Okay, so are we going to move on to minor capital then? Okay.
We should be able to.
Okay. So on the treatment plant forklift, I read about that a little bit more. So are you saying right now you have no forklift at your treatment plant?
Correct.
So you have no way to take the totes, order thing by totes at all?
We don't order by totes, we order by 55-gallon drum.
Because you have no forklift.
Or bolter. So yeah, we move it around with a crane on the back.
Well, I for one think you need a forklift.
Well, we need a forklift. We do have the one brought up from the yard.
So you borrow theirs.
Yes. What this is not necessarily so much a forklift specifically for the treatment plant, but it's a Gradall style forklift.
Yeah.
Because the large forklift we have down here, I believe, is older than I am, and it needs to go.
Okay.
Okay.
And so this would replace it with an all-terrain, all-wheel drive forklift that when we work on the filters and there's wear parts at the plant, it can reach into the plant.
Very versatile.
Now we have to go out and rent one.
Yeah, those telehandlers are very versatile and wonderful, and they're becoming reasonable. So.
So this will be looking at the using like we did with the man.
Right.
Okay.
And go ahead.
The gator for the treatment plant, I know you bought one last year. So how does that working out? How's that?
As far as I know, it's working out really well.
They're using it to get around more tight spots. That's where we
Yeah.
And so right now with the treatment plant, you don't, do you have no small vehicle, no golf cart or no pickup truck? Those big ones that you all have. Okay.
So we're pulling samples up at the ponds, pulling samples at the lake, doing a little bit of, going around security and stuff at the lakes and stuff. We'll use the meter instead. And also for, getting stuff
It'd be a
around.
nice versatile vehicle.
And you'd have to have a gator because of the terrain. You couldn't do like an electric golf cart that could just be recharged.
I would be afraid of being left out in the woods.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a question. Okay.
I had a question about the pressure washer 10,000. That's what in the world kind is it? Because for 4 or 5 you can get outstanding steam, high pressure, everything. It'll brush your teeth and wash the dishes for 4,000 or 5,000. Why 10?
Well, Clint, mechanics, Stanley, he looked into it, and that number it's a little heavy.
Yeah.
For this, yeah, not by a whole lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the one that I've got at home is diesel, generator. You can crank up the temperature. It's steam wash. You can put bubble soap with it and everything. I paid $3,800 for it. Of course, that was 10 years ago, but that shouldn't be 10,000 now, should it? Anyway, okay. Well, when the time comes, I'm sure you'll be prudent. So,
Maintenance contract or something with it too.
yeah. Oh. Any more questions on 9 of anybody?
I noticed I think it's explained later on, the 2018 F-150. Is that the one that 42 replaces 16? That's something different.
No.
Okay, so tell me what that is.
And what we have is one of our older vehicles, the 2001 Dodge Dakota, used in the meter department. 120,000 plus miles, starting to get a little bit of friction. It's one of those vehicles that's used a lot all over town every day. And it is one of the oldest ones, and it's an upgrade to replace that, not necessarily into an F-150. That was what goes in the truck with we had 2 last year with the state contract. We're not convinced that we need to have a large truck.
Large.
But it's all about price and what we can do. It's more about, it's starting to nickel and dime us a little bit. It's working on it quite often. It does have high mileage, and it's just a replacement to get back up to a little newer vehicle before we really start spending money on it. So we can ask to replace one vehicle.
And then will that, the old vehicle be sold and the proceeds used for purchase of the new vehicle? Okay.
You say it's a Toyota, the one we've got?
Dodge Dakota.
Dodge Dakota, that's, yeah. If it had been a Toyota, well, it would have lasted another 150, but yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And then if Mickey could speak to the IT upgrades, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. It seems steep.
I've got 3 projects that as soon as you guys approve the budget on, I would like to start working on.
Just because they approve the budget doesn't mean they approve the funds.
That's right.
I'll bring you more information, of course. So the 3 things. First one is network upgrades. Our firewalls at the treatment plant and the office are out of service, so they're old enough where they're not being serviced anymore. And because we've had some issues with some of the mobile devices with how they work within our system, I'd like to upgrade the Wi-Fi so that we can have more protection when people log on, when the public or consultants come in and log on. So there's a more of an evident separation between our in-office stuff. Just to make, we have that separation now, but it makes it really difficult on people. So what I'm wanting to do, and all these projects here, I would like to bring in, some of the cost includes bringing in a consultant to kind of help with these things, because the network security, it's a big deal. And so I would just like to have someone else's opinion and help in designing a system that we're going to be able to use well into the future for mobile, for integrating all of our services. Mm-hmm. So that's one part of it. We have a backup drive system that is failing. So It's basically the unit that holds all our drives that we exchange out every week. It's so old, in fact, that the part that failed, we can't get a replacement for. So that is an upgrade necessary. And then the third item is hosting or changing our email from being hosted on site here. So basically our email servers in the back room, which for an agency our size is not very common. Most people are, you host it online in the cloud. And some issues that we've had is like when the bank burned and communications were down, we didn't have email. So if we can get it to a hosted site, makes me feel better because it's not in the back room in case something were to happen here. We can still communicate, with our customers just by rerouting around the office, right? We can just go on a cell service, or Kevin could work from home and contact someone in an emergency, where right now everything stops here. So, and there's some costs associated with getting a consultant to move that, because we have several mailboxes from current employees and past employees, past board members, that all need moved. So it's a big migration project, and it's kind of important not to lose anything. So I'd like to get the help of somebody who's done maybe 100 of these moves. So if you and with that hosted email, it's going to actually add some operational costs, because right now we discussed the software subscriptions in the past. And what I'd like to do is upgrade everyone to the current Office, and then once we get them onto the hosted email, those subscriptions are going to be about $17 a user a month. So it's about $8,500 a year operational expense, but it's really offset by the fact that we don't have to, if we were to upgrade our mail server, we would have to get a new server. We would have to get new licenses for everybody anyway. So generally, if you are under 50 users, you probably just always go to the cloud. You don't really invest the money in the host, you're self-hosted, unless you're a large corporation. Then you start saving money, once you have about 100 to 200 employees. But for right now, it's probably better that we just go off-site.
Okay.
You think that we'll be more secure in the cloud than having our own in-house? In one way, I can see physically. In the other way, I can see maybe not.
Well, we would be going through Microsoft, and they have a very good reputation for security. Everything through their servers is encrypted. The security actually might improve some, because right now we have to pay for a secondary mail security project to kind of filter everything. They have a bigger, more robust one than we could probably ever afford. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then the $70,000 includes all three of those projects?
Yes.
Okay.
Mickey, how long would the migration take if we approve this, if we started?
Well, the planning part of it will take the longest, but my hope is that if I can get some help with somebody to do it, that it can be done just over a weekend,
oh, really?
And so there's no interruptions.
Oh, wow.
But if I were to do it myself, I'm not going to lie, I could do it, but it's going to take me much longer, and probably my coworkers would shun me.
Yeah, Mickey, I've been through those before, and yeah, you're right. It can be done normally over a weekend if it's well prepared for and planned.
Yes, the planning is the important part and the expensive part. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kevin, in your absence, what I had kind of thought we might do is just start going page by page, and people have questions. Now that you've done the overview, can we do that? Can we just start?
I got two more slides, but
you do? Oh.
Are you good on the valve exerciser?
That's my recommendation. So let me give you just a little bit of background. We purchased one of these back in Berea, and it was a very good value for the expense. It allowed us to go out and exercise 20, 30 valves in a day easily with one person potentially operating the trailer. It's a trailer-mounted device with a robotic arm that's hydraulically driven. It had the one we bought had a trash tank on it and a hydro excavator, so you could hydro excavate the valve box. make it easily accessible, operate the hydraulic arm. When a person operates a valve, what they do is they open it or close it. They hardly ever do that more than once for obvious reasons. If you've ever turned a valve, that's a strenuous activity. With the machine, you can operate it up and down multiple times, which is truly operating a valve. If you don't operate a valve, it's like anything else. It doesn't work when you need it often times. So it's really a maintenance tool. It's very valuable. I was talking this morning with Clint, the mechanic. I'm still learning names. With Clint, and he suggested that we might do something more abbreviated, perhaps a truck-mounted utility bed. They make that version of the arm. So we'll discuss. So this is kind of the high end, $70,000. But again, it was a wonderful tool back in Berea to implement the valve exercising program that's referenced within the budget as a goal and as an activity. And I strongly recommend that we consider purchasing this type of equipment, and it would free up more people to do more work of other types than bang for the buck to get valves exercised properly.
Okay.
Reserving policy, this has been a topic that I think has been brought up. I wanted to kind of start off with our goals that were associated with the reserving policy. We started off with 6 designated reserves, which are the operating, water stabilization, emergency fund, drought management, equipment replacement, long-term capital. Then we have restricted reserves, which are sick annual leave fund, meaning that if everybody quit today, would you be able to pay them all out their leaves they've earned? Facility capital capacity fee that we talked about that already, which is capacity fees that were purchased. Those are restricted based that you can only spend them on certain projects. Bond reserve fund, debt proceeds construction fund, meaning if you borrow monies and you take it in, you have to be spent on what you borrowed them for. And PFD reserve fund. That's monies we collect for the fire department that are used to increase fire flows. Those are restricted in that they have to be used for that specific purpose. The board, when they set this, prioritized the reserves within the reserve policy. Number 1 being operational, down to long-term capital. What they're used or what they're calculated on is the second column. So operating budget including debt service and pipeline, and then percentages that they're targeting. So minimum percentages up to a maximum percentage of what they've felt. This again is designated. It's however the board feels. This is kind of your targets, but it's however the board feels that they want to do these. If the board says, I want to do 50% operating, I want to do 12%. Just because it's a minimum target, is your target's lower than that, doesn't mean you don't have the option of doing whatever you want to do. That's the beauty of designated funds. It's your guys' money on how you want to put them in.
And 100% means 100% of a fiscal year?
100% of operating budget, yeah, including debt service and pipeline. Okay. So basically, if you had so much money that you could fill 100% of your operational reserve, then that would be your maximum. That would be, you're basically telling the public, if we have that much money, we're only going to go up to 100% before we start basically not charging you monies that we're going to do this.
Not taking in any more. Yeah.
I mean, just to give you an idea, there's districts out there that have $500 million of reserves that they're sitting on.
Cash only.
Cash money. And it's not large districts either. They're districts that are just well-funded, that have been able to be able to accumulate these. A lot of them are newer districts or growing districts that they can charge capacity fee, developer fees. They're getting a tremendous amount of property tax payments coming from the county because there's just high income, high base values. We're not in that. We're not. That's not us. That's just not
I would sure love to see one full year set aside, but whatever.
Yeah. But so 17% is 2 months of your operating reserve. The board felt that was a good minimum, and so on and so forth. So this is our actuals. This is where we're at currently. You can see that a portion of it is restricted. 2.4 million of it. Or 1.2 million of it is restricted. And then the rest, what I did is I just filled up minimums. So I fill this up to the minimum, and then I pour it over into the next bucket, and then I pour it over into the next bucket. So we got 2 buckets filled with a small portion in the other bucket. And again, this is discretionary. Just because the operational is at 1.2 doesn't mean that we can't. If the district or if the board said, you know what, I think we should fill up each bucket equally with equal amounts of money and just fund it that way, then that's up to you guys. It's however you guys want to reserve your funds is how you want to reserve it. Just because operational is reserved is at 1.2 doesn't mean you can't use it for capital if that's the necessary need, which eventually you probably will.
Sure.
I mean,
that's what a reserve fund is for. Yeah.
True. If you wanted to move long-term capital up to priority 1 and move operational fund down to priority 6, that's okay. It's up to you guys. This is what our current budget would do to our reserves. So we would bring our reserves down, and it would kind of only fill up 2 buckets, and then we would have the other buckets that would be
yet to fund. Yeah.
In the so we would be drawing down. I don't think that came over right.
Isn't it?
I'm going to go to my page, my budget. Oops, I have to get
we were.
I have to close this. When it updated, I don't think it came over correctly. What page? Do you know what page that is?
I'm not sure.
That's page 6, 5, 6, 7. Where are you going?
So our current budget would draw our reserves down to where there's only a portion. There it goes. There's only a small portion into the water stabilization fund, and then our operation would still be at the minimum of 17% of the operational budget.
Oh, that's quite a bit.
So there is then, because we have a robust capital budget, that you're drawing down those reserves again. So those are the things that we have to kind of think about in when we're, I know Bill wants to increase reserves, but you have 2 options that you kind of do. You kind of.
Actually, I'd like to get rid of most of these reserve accounts, because they've never had money in them, and just have the operating fund, and maybe I didn't even know we had an emergency reserve, but the rest of them, as far as I can see, just can go away. All they're doing is producing paper and a lot of talk and no action, and I think they're an indication, the best one we've had so far, of how little reserve we have if anything should happen around here. Other than right now we're borrowing everything, and there isn't anything to back it up if a disaster hits, other than going out and trying to borrow more money.
That's why you're getting shown this.
So that's my stand. You don't have to quote me now.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But
that's have 12 million.
That's why we're looking at this. So hey, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. But there's always a consequence to spending money. Is that you're now, here's the consequence of it, right? And it's okay. It's okay as a district, just as long as everybody knows where we stand when it comes to that. There's 2 options. We can look back at our capital and go, you know what? I don't want to spend our reserves down, but I'm willing to pay for it over time. Let's go out and borrow for these capital expenditures. Or do we pay for them as we go? Do we draw down our reserves? We built them up pretty good this last year. Do we draw them down a little bit to pay for some of this necessary capital? Those are the things that we constantly are looking at, and those are the things that, as a board, those are the decisions that you guys make. We give you the information, you guys make the decisions. Is it, sometimes, a lot of times, debt's frowned upon. Why are you going out and borrowing so much? Why are you increasing the debt for the future ratepayers going forward? But sometimes debt's looked upon as a good thing, that you're paying for something over the life of the asset. This thing's going to last the district 20 years. Why should I make the person today pay for an asset that's going to be here for 20 years and get the benefit over 20 years? So those are your 2 options. And if we go back, we're going to... Where's my capital? If we go back, we look at the capital. There's items in there that you can go back and borrow for. Obviously, we're borrowing for this. We're borrowing for it over 30 years. But this is going to last the district 100 years, right? So to me, that's good borrowing. That's smart borrowing. That we pay for that over time.
I don't think there is any smart borrowing. Operating fund on your budget's $853,000. How much does it cost to run this place a month?
How much does it cost?
A little under $1 million. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not much of a reserve.
What is it? 1.2 divided 700,000.
About 600,000 a month.
Yeah,
there's
it's right there.
right.
So
I think there is a lot to be said about smart borrowing, especially since interest rates have been cheap. And I think the best minds in paradise will tell you that rates are probably going to be going up. Mm-hmm. And the time to borrow was probably during the last 4 to 5 years when it was almost free money.
It's definitely cheap.
And I think it's something to consider if you're anticipating a big need. Do you borrow now or do you borrow later at a higher rate?
Yeah, municipals generally will bond, but it's the same scenario. You pay an interest rate, and it's amortized over time. So if you want to upkeep, maintain, and improve your system, you have to spend money. You have to have the rates to support it. I think this is a wonderful strategy for reserves, much more detailed and robust than I frankly expected. Could it be tweaked? Sure, but at the end of the day, it's discretionary and reserved. So we're covering our debt through the reserve funds, and this board decides how to spend the discretionary. And the budget is a guideline for how we might spend those monies. And each project comes before the board for approval. So it couldn't be more transparent, open, and engaging, in my opinion. And love the transparency, the community input, and we're all in this together.
So you're saying this budget as presented. In other words, if we approve, that includes all the priority one, that we're going to use about $600,000 of our reserves.
Yep.
We don't have to, but that's suggested, right?
If we did all of priority one, then we would. That's if.
Okay.
And
Plus or minus actual to estimate.
Correct.
Because we could make more money than we thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to be transparent in that it shows that, hey, yeah, we're doing good this year, but if we do all these capital projects, therefore we're going to start seeing our buckets deplete. And if it's the board, this is the time for this discussion to say, like Bob was saying, is if it's time that we want to go out and borrow, we have projects we can go out and borrow for today. But it takes time, right? It takes time and direction from the board to say, you know what, I don't want to spend our reserves down to this, but I'm willing to go out and borrow for these projects and pay for them over time so that we're not spending our reserves down. I don't feel comfortable having, it's like if you go buy a car, you might have $50,000 in the bank to go buy a car, but you might not feel comfortable not having $50,000 in the bank at the end of the day when you have the car in the garage. Therefore, you borrow for that car. You borrow a portion for that car so that you have that reserve in your bank account that you feel comfortable with and that you feel comfortable paying for that over the time of the life of the asset.
Would it be possible to, if we wanted to move on a priority 2 project, roll it in with debt, and borrow the whole thing to say, well, we're going to do, we decided this big thing needs to be done, so we'll get a couple, $300,000 extra to pay for some of these other things.
Now you're speaking Jim's vision. which, and there's nothing wrong with Jim's vision. But that may well be what would be required if we were to do all those projects and lump it into one project. It would have to be funded, and more than likely you'd need to borrow for that.
I wasn't saying all, but I was saying we decided on a couple of them.
Yeah. So there's
that are close to my heart.
different ways to do that. Yeah.
It doesn't preclude it one or the other. It's just, this is a suggested list.
So what we've done in the past, and we've done this, or what we've done in the past, we've borrowed for 3 projects before. So we borrowed for the courtyard. We actually borrowed for the old SCADA project, and we borrowed for a portion of our pipeline project that we had a 50% cost share for.
Did you also borrow for the AMRs?
We borrowed for the AMRs, but that was a one project AMR. So that was a different funding. We've borrowed for multiple projects before, and it's not a difficult borrowing. So if the district was looking at this list going, yep, I want to move
Because
that.
we may be able to accommodate a little bit more debt service.
Exactly. So one would be, you could put I'm just kind of throwing things out there, but you put the Almond Street Pipeline project in there, which is a big ticket item, and then pick maybe a couple of the items from Jim's wish list, and you could lump something into a $3 million borrowing, and you can go out and borrow that. So always $1 million borrowing, 100,000 debt service.
Yeah, that would take care of your 600,000 out of reserves right there.
Yep.
Ann, excuse me for just a moment. This is probably as good a spot as any to discuss this, and it's been something that's been on my mind for a while, and I've had some informal conversations with Kevin and staff, and Dan and I think discussed this informally. And again, all this is to the wishes of the district, the board, the community as partners. But there's been a stated goal of the board to replace much more of the steel pipeline that's in the ground. We have 60 miles roughly of pipeline, and on the schedule of replacement that we're presently under, we would replace that in about 200 years, which obviously is not timely enough. That pipeline is already at or past its useful life, and so replacement is imminent. And so the question becomes, how do you budget for that? How do you schedule for that work? And just throwing out at this point for conversation a possible solution for that challenge would be to implement a designated line item on the bill, much like we now have for debt service and what are our other reserves, the various components that we have listed as line items, a pipe replacement component on our bill that would be we would identify in a 2, 3, 5, 10-year span what our goal is for replacement, identify projects within those goals and price them, get cost estimates accordingly. And then we would, one avenue would be to borrow money towards that project, amortize the cost over time, and then apply that to our ratepayers' bill as a line item on a monthly line item bill. And we could, that could be one potential solution to achieve that goal in a very transparent, visible way to our customers that would carve out that component of our costs and assure our customers that we're planning well into our future for that replacement in a more reasonable time span. And I would also add to that if we didn't speed up that replacement process and fund it, obviously you can't do work without funding it, that we could have catastrophic failures, and then there would be great expense in a very narrow window that would blow our budget and cause a bigger spike in our rates in the short term. So again, throwing that out for conversation, it's when I worked for Aqua America in Philadelphia, the old Philadelphia Suburban Water Company, they had to bring rate cases to the Public Utilities Commission, the state commission that determined whether rates could be raised or not. This board is the rate commission for this district. That was approved in Pennsylvania, and that was a big win for the water company. And so they became very aggressive, replacing very aged, as you might imagine, in Philadelphia, water pipe infrastructure. And they did so in a very transparent way, and it was a monthly charge. It was reconciled quarterly, annually, trued up, and kept fair and transparent to the ratepayer.
And something that maybe in like 20 years might be deleted when the bill was paid.
When it's done. Yeah.
Correct, and then you could relook at it. How far have we gotten? Did we achieve our goals? You could look at that as often as you wanted, obviously. The way this district works, which I love, is that we look at it all the time. We look at it monthly. We look at it certainly annually. We look at it budget time. But it's a potential solution. It's certainly could be perceived to be painful and could be perceived to be a new rate, but it's really what we're doing now. We're just not doing it as clearly, I would argue. And if we're, again, going to achieve that replacement on a expedited schedule it has to be paid for. So then the question becomes, how do you pay for it? And that's one avenue. So it's just a suggestion at this point. Thought I'd throw it out for public consumption, thought process. And if we get to the point where we're more seriously considering that, certainly we would bring it forward within the constraints of the Proposition 218. Mm-hmm. Hey, I got it right. 218, and have all public comment and public meetings and discourse and all the conversation and discussion that we would need before we would implement such a thing.
I would like to see something on the agenda in the next 2 or 3 months.
Yes, sir.
On this line.
Yes, sir.
I don't know about y'all. We at least talk about it. Yeah. Sure.
Again, at this point, it's conversation.
I think that's
correct.
Very good forward thinking.
Yep.
That's where the priority should be, is on the pipelines. And thank you.
Yes,
yep.
sir.
Couldn't agree more.
Got that rate consideration in November, so it does tie in.
If I can, I'll make a suggestion that I know that while I was out of the room, Jim was going to put his priority list on as an agenda item. So we'll have Ed put his priority, or we'll have that as the same time. Then we can kind of maybe talk about debt packaging a debt service obligation together that would encompass maybe both, one separate, and then if we are forward thinking that we're going to maybe think about putting that as on the rate as a rate, then we can then give us time to develop that. So that when we do come in November to look at the rates, that we can then have our package together so that we know where you guys want to stand, and then we'll pay for it. So basically, what do you want to do expense, and then give us time to figure out how to pay for it. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. I see Ward itching to stand up.
Yeah.
I've let a lot go by up to this point, but we're almost up to my pet peeve. You know, the bottom of 9, it says the board has the option to fund any priority Capital 2 projects throughout the fiscal year. We put these pipeline replacements into priority 2. I wish Tom Kelly was here. You know, his theme for 50 years has been to figure out how we can get the fire rating down on the town of Paradise so we don't pay so much in our homeowners insurance. And I bless him for working so hard to be able to do that. But part of that condition is based on how much water do we have when the fire comes into town. We just had the Honey Run event and luckily had it saved, not by us, but by an airdrop who was on its way back to Chico and didn't plan on dropping retardant into our canyon. It got all the way up to Skyway. It jumped across a little bit. But in the fire department's words, if it had gone into Vista Village, they wouldn't have been able to save it. We'd have had our own Santa Rosa, our own Redding right here at the entrance to the town. How's that look for somebody coming up here for vacation or wants to move up here? That sucks. It says right here, you have the obligation to move priority 2s to priority 1. You have got to change these 3 pieces of pipe that are indicated in here that are part of fire safety. Absolutely have got to do that. Changing these pipes to get us the larger size, full service, full volume for every single hydrant is exactly what our fire department has got to have if they're going to save this town. You can't do anything else. I know that people are saying we got all these other capital projects. These pieces of pipeline absolutely have got to be done, and it's your priority to move that from a 2 to a 1. If we get a fire and the fire department says we can't save that, we don't have enough water, the burden's on you. Thank you for your time.
That is correct.
Ward, we're in agreement, I believe, on that.
Yep. Couldn't agree
I think
more.
all of us are.
We'll take it out of 19 and 20 and put it in 18 and 19.
And we hopefully maybe can do that. Yeah.
Am I mistaken? Is that clock on the wall right? It's 12 o'clock?
No, it's about 7 minutes till.
Okay.
Okay. Continuing.
Is that all?
We're gonna
I
wait.
just wanted to make sure we got so that it's kind of like here's all of our wish list. Now it's kind of the bad news about where all that wish list goes to.
Right, and we know that we're at liberty to make work whatever.
You want to take a break
Do you want to,
before
before we get too deep into anything else, do you want to see where lunch is?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if it's not here, then we can take a couple of
Yeah.
questions back and we can start going through pages
Yeah,
because I've got
Me
questions.
too, starting page 1.
Yep.
Well, some corrections, actually. Some of the typos are from last year are still here.
There's
Boring
scads.
as a
And he,
one.
and he, remember he had the
We
one
try to
where you
keep
could
it lively.
edit it right in front of
there.
us.
We try to keep it lively.
Oh, okay.
I got a whole bunch of typos throughout.
Kind of like the
Yeah,
Fire
I couldn't
Safe
do, like,
Council.
after a while,
Their
I
part of their
couldn't-
mission is to have fun, or is that be jovial? What
But
is
if
it,
it's spelled
Ward?
wrong, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. And they're just scads of typos. Just- Maybe you and I ought to just at the end just.
No, we
jump
should
on
just go
Kevin
through
and-
page by page. No,
No,
because
but I mean in regards to type. Yeah.
I did that 3 times last
Yeah,
year.
uh-huh.
And I took my time to type them
Yeah,
all
there's,
out in
there's,
the email, and they
there's
didn't
a
get
few in here I
changed.
found too, so yeah.
So we're going to do it now.
Okay, that works for me. We can do it fast. We all found piles of typos. We're going to go through it.
Sure there is.
by page.
So can you put up a change where you can change it?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
An edited one?
She wants to start on page 1.
Page
so we'll
1.
just go until another 5-6 minutes, and then noon
So
we'll
lunch
stop.
is here.
Oh, when is lunch here? Oh, it's here.
Oh, it's here.
Okay. Well, let's
No, we're starting at the beginning.
page
Back
1.
to the beginning.
Back to the beginning. Page 1.
Okay, go for it. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I just had it. There it is.
You want my question first?
Sure.
Sure. Go ahead. Jump up.
It says we are presenting, who's the we? Is that just them two, or is it all of you? Who's the
I think
we?
it's PID district.
Ed and Kevin, I guess.
But it has the input of all the department heads and,
Staff.
yeah, staff.
That's a good answer to that.
They're presenting it to us, the board. Well, and to you guys, the public.
Okay, go for it. I'm ready.
Okay, just page 1, second paragraph, last sentence, from Little Butte Creek watershed and our surface water, lake or reservoir, not yours. So the Y goes there. And then district structure and leadership, first paragraph, last sentence. Each director must reside, not the director, just each director must reside in the division he lives in. That was the typos.
I missed that one.
Okay, next. I don't have anything until, I already gave you on page 5, changing that calculation, 2% increase and decrease.
Going to page 2, or are we going?
Yeah, well, actually,
If you guys, yeah, I've skipped
as
now.
we
You
go
got
from
something on
page to
page
page,
2?
you got something jump.
Yeah, jump in.
Why don't you say anybody got something for page 2?
Okay, page 2. We're on 2.
No, 3?
What's the difference between a part-time employee and a temporary?
Okay.
Part-time and temporary. Well, actually, we don't have. We used to have part-time. We have it in our MRU that we have part-time permanent employees that used to be at the lake. They turned that person into a permanent employee. Part-time permanents have the opportunity to receive medical benefits.
Okay, your org chart has 5 temporary laborers, and your text says you have 5 part-time employees. Which would you like?
Temporary.
Okay.
Okay.
Where's that
So
at?
what page was that?
Page 2, second paragraph.
Page 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so 5.
We're
It says
at on page
part-time. Yeah, it says full-time and part-time, so you want it temporary?
Temporary. It sounds, well, it matches the org chart.
Still not sure where they are.
Can
you-
Second paragraph.
Second paragraph, or first full paragraph. No, second paragraph.
On page
Yeah,
2.
got it.
Page 2.
Full-time, 5
Third
part-time,
line,
so that
yeah.
that should be temporary.
Second line, third line.
Third line in that paragraph.
Part-time. 5 part-time. Is
Okay.
it part-time?
Temporary.
Temporary.
Okay. Anybody on 3?
Nothing on 3.
Page 3.
3.
Okay.
Bob has a question on the last paragraph.
I'm just, I'm going to read this and then ask what it means. This budget is intended to be used for feasibility and planning purposes only. Approval of this budget by the Board of Directors does not commit the district to a particular course of action. I've never heard that definition of a budget before.
We budget differently than like school districts and cities and
Yeah.
any
It has to be
other
spent and allocated.
any other district. That it's a guideline. It doesn't mean that there's any approvals in here that allow us to spend any monies that is not already, that will be approved by the district. So,
for instance, it's like the priority 1, priority 2,
Yeah.
those kind of things can shift back and forth. It's not locked into concrete.
And it's not spent until it comes to the board.
Right.
Okay.
he has discretionary spending that has the ability for him to spend up to $5,000 without board approval for non-chemical and distribution. He has up to $25,000 for approval to spend for distribution and chemical treatment.
So for the public's benefit, any expenditure over $5,000 has to have board approval?
If it doesn't deal with treatment or distribution pieces, but remember, the board approves salaries and benefits through the MOU.
Right.
So we don't bring that to you. So that's one of the main things. And another item would be contractor services like the attorney and anything else that's been approved through a contract is obviously we pay up to that contract limit amount. So a lot of times you'll give us up to not exceeding amounts, and we pay those without bringing every line item because we have a window to pay within.
But yes, you're right. A lot of these items, even though they've been suggested, they have to still come to the board. Individual items explained,
That's what I'm-
reviewed,
that's what
and
I'm
so on.
thinking.
Yeah.
Get the project
That's the
going.
reason for the loose language.
Yeah, okay. And then what is, I can't even read my writing. There's a lot of acronyms in this report, many of which I don't know what they are because I haven't been here. What's CE?
CEQA.
CEQA,
Maybe
California.
the first time you use
Environmental.
my suggestion is the first time you use the phrase, maybe put what it is in parentheses, so.
That makes sense.
Or we could put a page of acronyms with their definition.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, either
That
like
would
philosophy
fluctuate.
or whatever.
That's in this world, that's what we do.
Quality act.
Okay.
Sure. For me, is who I'll create it for.
Yeah, a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, that's
I
all
like
I got
the-
for 3. Anybody else on 3?
Page 4?
Better spell it out.
We're on 4?
Acronym in parentheses.
Page 4, any questions?
Just remember, look at the top square.
Thank you. That's what the reason we would love to have 25, 30 people out there. Yeah. Vacancies, they're all being filled. Do they need to be filled? I guess so, yes. I mean, if we function fine without vacancies, can we continue to? He's just shielding himself from that one.
I'm looking at Keith to give a thumbs up. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Page 5.
That's now we're on 5.
Would page
Whoops.
4 be where I would bring up the water treatment plant maintenance mechanic? Or should we wait till we get to the treatment part?
Just bring it up
Good
now.
as any,
Is
yeah.
This came through ad hoc for a water treatment ad hoc committee, and I really did drop the ball and just recently brought it to Ed and Kevin's attention that there is an open position. It's has a job description attached to it. It's called water treatment plant maintenance mechanic, and they have not had a maintenance mechanic, and the operators have been doing their own maintenance at the plant for years. And so I would like to look into filling that position in this budget.
So,
Creating the position, to be clear.
Well, there's a job description, there's existing
Oh, so it's a
position, it's
vacancy.
just not filled.
A placeholder, like
Very good.
it would be a new box in the org chart, and it
Yeah.
would be somewhere probably in here that we would create that box for that person. And so that would
Okay.
be
We can.
a budget amendment, basically,
Right.
to, upon creation of that position.
Okay. You want to put that on a future agenda?
Sure.
Okay.
I
Go
will
for it.
agendize that, but after
We'll
you get
budget-
back, your thoughts back to me on that.
Yeah, sorry, I confused your
That's okay.
question there.
They're-
So.
They're
And
confusing.
We'll get cost estimates on what that position would cost, budget-wise. Yeah.
Okay, page 5, and then after 5, we're going to take lunch.
5, I already know
already
the
went through
Yeah, we already
percentages
did.
that will change.
But I'm just wondering, any of you have any questions? No?
That was me.
Oh, that was you.
Save a can, buy a fish.
Yeah.
So I had asked back in April if anybody could find out how much NRWS is cashing in cans and sending us a check for, and I never got an answer. So I asked myself, $408. Where's the rest of the money come from?
It comes from grants and from fundraising from the individuals.
Is there anything we can do to boost that? I mean, it seems to me there are thousands and thousands of cans going to waste. More than $408 from NRWS.
think I just heard Ward bring that up, that he's going to take on can safety. Thanks, Ward. I appreciate that.
I'll give you one of those little sticks, right? You can
But that is good point. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Okay, page 6, and it's lunchtime. Seems it's
Page 6.
4 minutes after.
On your guys' one, there is a correction.
Yeah, because I've got a bunch.
Prior year budget.
I got questions on that. What happened to we're taking lunch now?
Oh, wait.
Lunch now or not?
I think that's a lunch break.
Kevin just keeps talking, so I
Hold
wasn't
on,
sure.
I just want to bring this up before I forget.
Okay. Because I've got questions on that when we get started on that page.
Prior year budget, see this 2017-18 budget? This number right here is completely wrong.
The 13 million?
Yeah. That and that is completely wrong. So I'll show you.
Okay, when we come back, we'll discuss that.
It came over wrong on that. So.
I got one comment before we go. Maybe you'll see the humor in it. But government service, somebody's saving money on toilet paper. It's single sheets, fellas.
Hey,
We're just that frugal. We do our Back home, they call that Daniel Boone.
Some things you don't scrimp on, right?
12:45, and we are going to go back on it. Now, we stopped on page 6. May we pick back up on page 6? Yes. And the general agenda is just everybody, any questions on 6, and then we proceed as needed. Anybody from the audience have any questions? Make sure that I see you jumping up and down or whatever.
So page 6 again.
Page 6.
Had that wrong number here. The capital improvement and the debt proceeds. So it changed this.
Take out the 11 million?
Can you?
Take out that 11 and for some reason it shut down on me.
And
no, wait. Hold on. I already updated it on here. It's we budgeted last year for 2.6 and 3 million. So our ending budget number, it has no effect on this current budget.
Okay.
This is last year's budget. I just want to make sure that those numbers were in there that are correct.
What you might consider doing is putting a bold line underneath each one of the totals for that one too.
Okay.
On page 6.
Got it.
I did have a question, if you don't mind me going first here. On 1, 2, 3, 4, about the 7th line down, it says taxes 1%, and it was budgeted at 240. The actual for last year was 270. Why do we budget lower when everything is going to be slowly increasing? Why don't you budget, say, 275 or something like that?
Because we always budget below revenue.
Right.
Estimate low and budget high.
Okay.
So.
Wasn't there also a number, we're talking about property tax?
Yeah, property
And
taxes.
the state can take part of that, is that correct? If they chose to?
Well, they did 10 years ago or whatever, but as long as they don't do something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know if that entered into the...
Yeah. Excuse me. On the revenues on the left side, it says other. Here was my question. I think it comes up later in another one. But does that include the rental of the houses up here and so on? Got it. Okay. That's all I had. Anybody else?
The interest on the loan on the old place, is that in this?
Is that under interest or other?
Other.
Okay.
Okay. Anything on 7? Anybody? Page 8. And we've dealt with 9, so we go to 10.
10?
How about page 10?
Yeah, 10. The word up there after treatment plant, what's that?
Upgrade, but
UPGRAD. I don't get that word.
Upgrade. Oh, yeah. You don't know that word? That's cute. I would imagine in the far right column, the top figure, the 7 million, that's just a shot in the dark. You're just guessing.
I had the same question.
Yeah, because I think that's going to be 30 million, but whatever, we'll see.
Placeholder, yeah.
Placeholder.
Yeah. Right, okay.
placeholder.
Nothing on 10, proceeding to 11. Anything on 11?
Yeah, look at the green line. That's all us real people. Look what you're doing to the water rates. It doesn't bill us at all. Bill already mentioned, some of us are on fixed incomes, retired. We don't have any extra growth. You can't make that line go up for us.
I agree.
Okay. 12, anything on 12? 13.
Okay.
Aging pipeline infrastructure, what's that word there? We have seen great improvement in the
Lowering.
lowing.
Lowering.
Is that what cows do?
Yeah, they do.
See, typo.
Well, we don't want cows in our water.
We're going to
I
start.
don't have to bring this up. He's going to do it for me.
We're going to put milk in the pipes from now on.
I do have one comment for that page. Should the under second paragraph, the alternatives for a drought supply, the first item is PG&E de Sable. Should we change that to Miocene Canal, because we still are kind of in the
I thought we were largely out of the loop, but
waiting for someone to approach us, maybe.
yeah.
Okay, I'll change that to do you have that written on yours?
Pardon?
I had something on
The
the
red
last
letters.
paragraph, too.
Go ahead.
Just on the last, the second to last sentence there, you talk about a better understanding of the requirements necessary to meet. I would change that to saying we're, negotiating or anyway to acquire dilution credits that will enable the district to meet new permit MPDS requirements.
I'll
New MPDS permit requirements.
Okay.
Well, I guess maybe second big paragraph, the renewal of the district's water rights permits. Bottom line, the EIR should be restarted during the fiscal 17-18. Well, that one's passed. Do you want to change that verbiage on that too? Because
So this fiscal year?
that is history.
Yeah, I would say 18, 19.
Yeah, I can put comments in here, but we can't.
But we can hit you later on that, Kevin. I've got that in my list of.
Dilution credits. What did you say? That was good. Your verbiage.
Oh,
Dilution credit
I-
to acquire.
Yeah, acquire dilution credits that enable the district to meet new NPDS permit requirements.
Thank you.
I should have just let that slide and given it to you later, Kevin. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to get a cleaner document if you guys submitted all those suggested edits.
We will come to you afterwards, and so we aren't boring everybody. Page 14. There are a number of typos, et cetera, on that one, but we can.
If you give them to me,
On operating expenditure, second paragraph, board expenses are expected to decrease due to not having an election in the current year. We are having elections in the current year.
and yeah, they will decrease, but we are, because of the recall election. But we are having an election, yeah. So
Yeah, so that needs to be corrected, because 4 of us are running this year.
no, only one.
Only one was
No,
disputed.
Larry and I are. Same office.
Only if you're opposed, the election costs go up.
Oh, okay. Appointed versus elected. Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because of the fact that you had no opposition, you're automatic. Sorry.
Okay. So due to having only one election
There
in
you
the current
go.
year.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
Page 15. Anything? Page 16, I had a lot of questions on.
And I'll tell you why that's intentionally blank.
That's okay, we don't
It's
care.
because there's tabs on the final. There's tabs,
Ah.
so you don't. You have, if you have a page here, this page has to be blank for the next. So you put a tab in. So
Got
you
it.
flip that next page is there.
Works for me. Page 17, one small thing, the blue bar on the right, that actually should be over the line, not under the line,
Oh right.
The 18, 19.
because it's 8,936,000, which is definitely in excess of 6. Page 18.
That last bar.
Let me see. What have we got? I got one, little below the middle on the left, it says RDA reimbursements. The RDA's been gone for a while. I don't suspect you could probably just adios that whole thing, since the town doesn't even have one and hasn't had one for 10 years. Anybody, anything else? No? 19? Some typos, the percentages are not labeled on those two top charts, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't alter anything. It's just...
Oh, okay. Getting some lines on those.
Yeah. Page 20.
I see a couple of things. There's no bold line of the word business, but there is over the other headings.
A separation line there, yep.
Yeah. And at the bottom where the fire service connection charges are, you got January 1st, 2018 at $6.75 and January 1st, 2018 for $0.
Got
And
it.
then in the right-hand column,
Same thing, you got to repeat.
same kind of thing, and there's no 2019 estimate in there. All the other categories in here have the rates for 2019, not for fire service, I guess.
So that's probably was meant to be 2019. Yeah, that's what I guessed too.
Just going to flow right.
21. Any questions?
Yeah.
Go.
The end of the narrative says, as the fiscal year 15-16 actual, the box does not have fiscal year 15-16 actual in it. So where's the comparison there?
So we change that. That 15, 16 needs to be changed.
And Bob, you had some?
Yeah, the bottom chart says 1957 to current, but it ends at 2014.
It's actually current, but it doesn't stretch that last because there's so many years there. That's kind of an Excel issue. I can try to get that to make sure that last number
Well, do you-
pops
You
up.
should drop off a few of the
Yeah.
old
You don't need
years.
the 57, do you?
Yeah, drop off the old years.
Yeah,
On
just
1957?
just
Or
shove all
60
the...
or
year.
59.
I'll drop off some.
I remember that year well.
I had a 57 Chevy.
Yeah, there you go.
And then where it says consumption variations by month, what are we talking about this year or last year?
It's historical, so I can put the historical.
What year are you talking about?
It's a historical, so it's an average over a historical.
Okay, average of years from what to what? That's,
Yeah.
sure. Okay.
22.
Yeah, the third sentence, service charge will change to $42 on January 1, 2018.
To be 2019.
No, it's January next year.
Yeah, I got that.
Yep,
Correct.
it's got that too.
Back charge for a
Yeah.
service rate increase.
Retroactive bill?
How are we going to develop our coffers if we don't?
Retroactive bill?
23.
For surplus property, did we actually sell that building in this prior fiscal year?
Which one?
The office building, the old office building?
No, it's been a while. Does it say that?
So that can drop out.
Yeah, that could
So
just
can we just drop that sentence out?
adios that whole thing.
Okay.
I think in delinquency charges, the word dates should be days.
Oh, yeah, days
25
after.
days.
Yep.
Yep.
It says dates, you can just pick whichever ones you want.
Yeah.
And then under property tax revenue, I think the last sentence, or the next last sentence, the customer's water rate. Customers don't have multiple rates, plural, they have one. And there's no period after that before you start capital T next sentence.
Okay, where are you?
There are several typos that I have on that page, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. But I just didn't say because we're supposed to wait. But you got it.
24. 25, I got a couple of typos we'll point out to you. 26. It seems like I had a question. Actual 20. This is utilities. Oh yeah, down in the operational expenses by category, the fourth line down, utilities, you carry that on across. Why are utilities going down? Why are you estimating down when they are going up? Again, it's nothing major. It's your same principle. Undershoot. But that's an expense that you're potentially...
I mean, we could take it up if we want.
It's small amount, not a big deal.
That's if we get that solar system, right?
Yes,
there we are.
Some of that usage depends on temperature and weather, and he probably did an average, I would guess, over the last couple of years.
Changed light bulbs out at the treatment plant.
Yep.
Operational expenses by category in insurance takes a heck of a jump in fiscal 17-18 actual.
Yeah, it's because
it's been, high 88,000, 92,000, goes back to 92,000 for the estimate, 92,000 for 1920. What's the big jump in 17-18 actual?
It's a timing difference. It was where we had paid it once in twice, or like fiscal year, and you paid in paid in July.
That 1 month will offset it.
Yeah. But this is liability insurance, right? Okay.
Aqua and it's all liability.
All liabilities. Okay.
Property.
27. Actually on the right columns, but I guess if it kind of goes along with your philosophy there, that would explain a fair amount of it. But the actuals are substantially different than the estimated, and so I was just curious. I marked all these. Take for instance, second one down, materials and supplies, down bin underneath security and recreation. You carry that on across. The estimates are real high, but the actuals are extremely low. Like the estimate for 2017-18 was $7,900. The actual was $1,500 almost. But then again, you've put back up the estimate for 18-19 of $7,900.
It's just based, to be honest, it's based on operational flows and where people are working within each department. So if you have a big project for recreation, let's say they go and do a picnic tables or something, then you have an operational that maybe was budgeted in transmission and distribution that now is being operated over in security and recreation. And vice versa, if we don't do anything up there for that fiscal year, then there's not going to be too much expense up there. So it's just an operational flow type of thing.
But it's nice to have the funding there in case they need it.
Something.
Yeah. And again, I just was looking at the history, and it's all $1,500, and you got $8,000.
And back probably 13, 14, when you guys did a lot of work up there, probably would be a lot higher. Or probably over budget that year, for that type of stuff. And then we haven't done too much work up there recently, but yeah.
Anyway, I'm just trying to, in my researching it, just looking at it, I thought it ought to be a little more realistic because it's the same thing in water treatment, outside services, 20, and then you've got estimated 63,000 instead of 20,000 like has been traditional. Down in customer services about that
was one of my errors I was going to point out. That negative 28,000.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How do you did somebody write you a check for $28,000?
It got posted wrong, and so it's actually revenue. So that'll be corrected.
Okay.
It's outside.
I think the approach of conservatism and how sometimes you have to say we're going to put this much money in, even though the history is you don't spend it.
Right.
But you make the estimates all add up to the hard figure. That's the fixed cost of running this place, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So they ought to be.
That's what our rates are. Our rates have to be able to pay for all the fixed costs.
Based on that. Yeah.
Yeah, the rates would be based on cost of service studies, and budgets are estimates by definition. And I know that's not a direct answer to your question, but rates are not determined on budgets. Rates are determined on audited numbers through a cost of service study.
And just pointing out, just a few of them, when you look at it, there's
huge discrepancies.
more of the estimates that are way over the actual, and year 4 times more than we ever spend.
If you remember, if you
That $1 not going to make a difference, but you add all these up, and
I could understand
But
like
if
a
you actually-
10% bump in each one or something like that, but when it's 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, don't jump to 14,000, or whatever.
But if you
So-
actually look at estimated and actual, let's say for fiscal year ending 2018, it's like $200,000 difference.
Yeah, exactly.
So once it all gets down to the $7.5 million part, it all seems to
You're
balance
going to
out.
overspend in some funds,
Yeah.
and you're going to
Yeah.
way underspend in others, and so,
So-
it all just kind of evens out.
Yeah.
And it's all based upon priorities and decisions that the board makes.
And so what you do is, if you're continually underfunding one, then you start pulling money to make it balance out. But
and I'm a little old public out here on my fixed income, and I can't stand for around $200,000 differences. I'm sorry.
well, in a $7 million budget, that's
And you remember, right, if we had a pipeline and operational, we were $38,000 within budget.
oh, that's right.
So,
Good point.
Yeah.
A lot of the variances I'm seeing at a glance are, in utilities and insurance, things that will vary for given conditions.
it's departmental.
But I didn't get a chance, quite honestly, to participate a great deal in the formation of this budget, but I'll certainly be engaged in the next one, and we'll definitely look at tightening those ranges and those variances. But it's a fine line, because you go too far, then you're back asking for more money, or
Right.
you're going to have a bracketed number to explain the next year. So we'll look at it.
See, and I understand that too, right? But take for instance this very second item up on the left from the bottom, insurance, underneath administration, insurance. It's 46, 40, 41. The actuals are 40, 40, and then last year the actual was 84,000, but yet you've only got 30,000 budgeted. Unless there was some big thing in there, then maybe that 31 estimate for 2018-19 needs to be bumped to 60 or something. I don't know. Again, what I was looking for when I'm dragging a slide rule, a piece of paper down this, reading the columns across, is approximately the same. Where are we going? Where are we going? Why is this going? And I see some huge, $55,000 discrepancy in what we actually spent last year versus what we're proposing for next year.
So is that an actual then, the 83?
Yeah.
84?
Yeah, but if you add all these up, it comes to about the same as what it was.
Gotcha. I bet that was tied to this, though, that actual.
Yeah.
If you look back on page 26, under the insurance, if I'm looking at it correctly.
It didn't get spread to the departments in an even manner, like the budget shows.
Okay.
We'll look at that particular one,
Sure.
Dan, and like I
Well-
say, next year I'll definitely look at this closer line by line, and that variance and how it varies in the subtotals and in the totals and in the line items, it all matters, and we'll look closer. But if you do look at the bottom lines, not that the bottom line's all that matters, but the percentage difference
and
is
I
consistent
understand.
and is conservative as
Right
it should
there.
be.
Yeah. Page 28. Any questions? Page 29.
I got a question down at the bottom for you directors from 2 to 4. What do you get $2,400 for?
Going to meetings at $100 a crack.
They take their salary, as opposed to other directors that don't take a salary.
There's some that
What it's for, we went to 24 meetings.
some
It's an
take.
estimate of 2 meetings per month.
You might refer, in case there's somebody watching wants to know an answer on that. We are, as board members, we approved. We talked about last year and a half ago or whatever it was, eliminating all of the remuneration systems, but we decided no, we're going to leave it like it is. And so there is an allowance for $100 a meeting for those that choose to take it. And then there is also the allowance for them to participate in the insurance programs that the PID offers. And so that's there if they choose. A number of us choose not to take any remuneration. Some people do. So.
Okay. And I see which division directors for 1819, and then we
I know. I just saw that.
Yeah.
I'll fix that.
Oops. I did have a question for, maybe it's Jim Passanisi, in regards to water treatment plant operator 3445, the overtime of $16,500 for all of that. Is that something we're going to, or whose is that? What, Bill, Jim? I don't care. Is there any? Is that going to be fixed in the future?
Relief.
The shift works, there's 8 hours of overtime
Er,
every week.
Okay, and there's, yeah, and there's no way that, like the cops when they start running. Go ahead. And that's what I would just, and that would fix it then. Yeah.
You would have to work out a new shift schedule.
Right.
The way we do it is probably the cheapest way to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's basically scheduled overtime.
And that's right, because I'm used to dealing with fire department and cops and all of that to do that.
Similar
too, so.
kind of a schedule with the sleep time and the
Right.
24-hour coverage, et cetera, security.
Mm-hmm.
I think, is that within the MOU? Is that how that's set up?
It's all set up in the MOU.
Mm-hmm.
The
Okay.
difference between our operators and firemen is firemen get paid to sleep. Our operators don't.
I will say for a 24/7 operation, that's not a large number of folks. So then you have to account for benefits, et cetera.
Yeah.
And what that impact would be versus the overtime. And
Right.
we can look into that again. I'm sure it's been looked into before.
One of you just said it's cheaper to do it that way, and that works for me. I just was curious when I saw all that. I just, having dealt with the town before, knowing that the fireman cop thing,
Right.
if we could hire one more cop, we'd save $80,000 a year versus all of the overtime.
We'll look at that math again, but I'm confident it's a savings.
Thank you.
The benefits kill it.
And I noticed there's 2 lines for plant operator 4. But do we have a operator 2 position?
I don't think we have an operator 2
No?
position.
Okay.
No.
These are the exist.
Should just be 3, 4, and 5.
Right.
There's two 4s.
It says
Just
3, 4,
one line
4.
got duplicated.
But there is.
This is
That's right.
reflected.
That's per person. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
There's
this is
2
the
4s.
individual certification
Okay.
level and
Never
their
mind.
job
Never mind.
title.
So then this is the one that, where the DSO is the WQT now?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Page 30.
I'll fix that divisional change. Page 30.
Any questions? 31.
Yeah, up at the top, put a date at the same date, 1819, but different numbers.
So the other column's supposed to be 20.
The final column. That last column should be 1920 Ward. We'll correct that.
Thank you. 31.
Yeah, we're on 32.
32.
I didn't, did we finish 31? Okay.
Oh, this one, he answered my question yesterday.
Question 32 is the 15-16 actual showing retirement at over $400,000, and no other year after that is it that high. What happened there?
Please say that again.
We had a big retirement that year. 3 retirees that year that we paid into
You
retirement.
guys got $400,000.
3.
2 guys, no. There was 3 guys that retired. There was a tremendous amount of retirement that went into their long-term employees.
Why is there a 0 on source of supply under 2017-18 actual?
No one put all their time went into either security and rec or water treatment.
Okay.
So the main 2 people up there is Greg and Jason. And most of their time goes into Department 15.
Okay. 33.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
thanks.
Thank you. I thought that was just kind of peach fuzz growing on that bottom line. I wasn't sure. And again, on the top graph, I had a bunch of questions about why the extreme differences between actuals versus estimated, but I think I've beat that horse enough.
There's something down here.
Yeah, that's what he was just addressing. Yeah. 34, anything? 35? Can you re-explain to me source of supply? Definition is?
It's kind of it's the lakes without recreation in a way. It's kind of your main source. Trying to think like
Watershed protection.
The
Fire Safe Council.
physical lake facilities type thing.
Yeah, it's kind of almost it's. Like I said, I'm going to redo the budget for the next fiscal year. It's almost we're at a point where we collapse them.
Yeah.
It was set up originally because it was mirroring the treasurer's report, the state report, to have these different departments. Like they wanted source of supply, pumping, security and recreation, and so that's kind of how they were set up. But from a departmental standpoint, they both have just kind of mirrored together, where they're both kind of one and the same.
So you're saying you might consider just kind of blending them into the more appropriate areas.
Collapse them into one another. Security and recreation and source of supply all into one.
And just adios that whole thing.
Yep.
36. Oops, I'm sorry.
Security in 1516 and paper security in 1617, and then what? Security after that?
Where is that? What line again?
Charge, no charge.
Outside.
I don't know if that was an activity that just existed, like some investment in some equipment or something. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, you're right. 42, 55, and then nothing happens.
I know we had a full-time.
That would be under salaries.
What page is it?
On 35.
35,
temporary security
For outside
person.
services for security.
security.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it.
I could look into it. To be honest,
It's 42, 93, 55, 05, and then nothing. 17, 18,
okay,
19.
I see. Yep.
I would guess it was either equipment or a temporary security person, but I'm not sure. We'll look into that.
Again, if source of supply is slid into other areas.
This is just that weird category, and if you look at the timesheets, which I get to now every pay period, you see that individual Z has time in this account, no time in that account, a little in this account, and so it's almost an activity more than it is a department.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Kevin's talking about, and I agree, merge the ones that are getting very little activity. But you can always go the other way if
state, right? You still for the state report.
I can merge them inside of here pretty easily.
Got it.
Security has been a hot item in a lot of places. I mean, a lot of retail establishments, the thrift store at the senior center has opposite the museum. Cameras there made a big difference. And you don't have an expense for it, but what we've just learned with the deer and the bear problem and no orchard, adding animal camps, 5 of them now instead of the 3 we started with, has made a huge difference. Yeah. Maybe some of our security should be under video scrutiny.
Could be. This is the lake, and of course we have personnel that actually live there on site, and so that is some of our security, but I don't know that we've experienced enough vandalism or damage to we'll consider
warrant
that.
it, yeah.
Well, last night's news about the damage down in the park in Orville. They're going to add cameras to see if they can identify these people that are trashing it every single night. And they have to take the bleachers out because of all the damage. It goes on and on and on. When some of these people are.
Bill, maybe we can get that on the next Lake Committee agenda to discuss security. Seems to be pretty timely.
Yeah. This amount doesn't represent very much coverage. I wonder if was this for the equipment left out at a job site and they just had somebody.
We're not sure.
Sit out there.
Georgianne, would you remember to put that on the committee?
We actually don't have much damage up at the lake because both the guys are principally at Paradise Lake.
Live there.
Where we're lacking is down in Magalia Reservoir. Even the damage that was done there was found on one of the inspection trips, and they don't do it frequently. And we talked on our tour of adding a trail going up from Magalia Reservoir to Paradise Lake. And part of the idea behind it is security. By having a public trail there, there's more eyes to see what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of that fine line we walk between, access and then are you opening it up to other unsavory folks? But yeah, I hear you, Bill.
Yeah, it'll open it up to the public, which will help us control the unsavory ones, because we don't have enough manpower to do it.
Well, that's a good point. Like if we have a new project, I'm thinking of Reservoir B, maybe we ought to incorporate some security measures into a new project because it's all new and we can just.
Right. And I haven't been involved with any of the planning yet on any of the projects, but it's something I always look at as security.
Yeah.
Cameras are getting more effective, less expensive.
Absolutely.
The high definition, you don't need as many, and you still can zero in and get clarity. And
that's.
Well, Bill Taylor can tell you about Reservoir B, what we had to go through there to improve security from people throwing rocks and stuff on the cover.
Yeah, Mickey, why don't we include you in that conversation when the time comes soon?
Okay, page 36. I'm sorry.
So a couple of months ago during a board meeting, somebody from staff said that the fabric cover had been forced down by somebody throwing rocks into it.
Right.
Am I right there about that? Somebody threw rocks in on top of the fabric cover?
I think you're talking about...
Deer have walked on it and so on,
Yeah,
too.
you're talking about a different place.
Enough to be able to do that.
Oh, you can.
I think
Wasn't it Site B?
A 5-gallon bottle of Clorox and throw it in.
Well,
Wait a minute.
that's one of the reasons that whole Bladder
Wasn't it Site B?
Bladder Lake needs to adios.
I
It was
think
the
you're
screen.
confusing one thing
Yeah,
that happened
you're
at
confusing
Magalia.
the site. It was the
Diversion,
screen.
yeah.
They had
That's
the,
right.
someone put rocks.
Different item you're talking about.
It's Magalia Diversion Dam had the problem, and that was not on fabric. That was
By the
on
way,
metal.
Ward, we do have security at B-Res, motion detection.
Okay, page 36. Any questions? 37. Okay.
We have a lot of physical property in the town of Paradise. You don't call the county or the state for that. How about Paradise PD being included for that?
I have a hunch they probably do, but that's good observation. That ought to be included in there, huh?
I think it enters into that phrase, though, by saying land owned by other entities adjacent to district's lands. And that's when we would call, I believe is what their intent is there, to call the appropriate authorities for that kind of activity.
Well, we're next to federal land, too. You can put federal land up at the lake. Half of the dam up there at Paradise Lake is owned by the feds, and most of the picnic area, too.
I think staff has a pretty good idea about who to call, when, but yeah, good point taken.
38.
Appropriate agency.
Okay, so maybe someone could explain to me about the truck, because I'm confused.
Nothing's happening on that.
Okay. Just scratch it out?
Which item are we?
Okay, thank you.
So the whole bottom thing is adios.
25, that's not happening. Number 2.
That was easy.
And I did have a question about it. The third item down, it says manage the U.S. Forest Service special use permit for the lake. So I didn't realize, I don't recall, I didn't know that we had to get a special use permit from the Forest Service. Is this an annual, 5-year, 10-year, what is it? Every 5 years. Hopefully it's always a formality, is it? Because what if they just said you can't have it anymore and decide to cut half the lake off or something?
Very complicated, scrutinized highly by the federal and regulatory agency. For the first time, this district ever been exposed to that.
Where's he referring to right now? This
Years of work. It's been resolved, and hopefully we are in a status quo situation. But Forest Service staff is in a constant flux. New people, and I know a new person, they want to recreate the deal.
Yep, we know that.
I hope that the permit went from about 7 pages to 38 pages. On my operations plan.
Thank you. I didn't know that we had to get it from the Forest Service, so.
They want to be notified of anything that goes on at the lake, even if it's
What happened,
Kind of resist some of that, but
for years, we had a semi-retired Forest Service representative that basically came up and rubber stamped everything and had a nice visit with Greg, and she retired. And after that came all the new management that came in, and they went back through and said, oh, you got to have this. And Jim has my sympathy. The Forest Service, once they start, do not let up until they just have all the I's dotted their way.
We had a similar thing happen with the county and the spill prevention requirements that Pat Ladrini just completed, did a very good job on. Yeah, when new people are in charge, they tend to, play by the rules, the letter of the law, if you will. But, yeah.
Page 39.
39 got some of those issues where you spend a little money and then all of a sudden the estimate goes way up. Look at gas and oil. Spend $36, 2 years later, you estimate you're going to spend $4,000, and actually you don't spend any of it.
Yep, I had some of those underlined too. Miscellaneous supplies estimated $2,000. You spent $8,000, and then you.
They allocate these expenses. Sometimes they don't get in the right place.
Yeah. Page 40. '41. Typos to be worked out later. 42. I was talking with Ward about this, and it's interesting on the, let's call it the third line down, it says, right after upgrade SCADA, it says recuperate plant paving. How do you recuperate it? Do you just, rub it and give it a massage and some hand lotion and it gets all better? Or?
Webster's new revised dictionary says recuperate means recover. No other definition. Recover. Recover plant paving. What's wrong with the plant paving? Maybe you want to repair it, but recovering it don't make no sense.
Does that mean replace or repair or remove? And I know. I just thought that was an interesting word.
Sure, it should say, repair and replace.
Or something. Or something.
Asphalt, pavement.
pavement,
I didn't get those sheets.
pavement maintenance requires slurry sealing.
Yes.
So, yes, you are covering pavement. Unless you slurry seal or crack seal or
Right.
or
Deteriorates
that type
faster.
of thing is
On a regular basis, yes.
on a. That's how you preserve pavement long term,
Okay, yeah.
by recovering it.
I was just thought it was cute to recall it. Recuperate. It sounds like you're bringing a patient back to life better.
Like that one.
Page 43.
Yeah, commercial services and repairs down there under outside services. 15-16, you spend $15,000, and 16-17, you spend $3,000. You estimate $25,000 for 17-18, but you actually spend $4,000. I mean, I'm getting a little redundant, but some of these, it just seems it's an overwhelming emphasis to go way over, not a little bit over. Dan mentioned, maybe if you added them up and added 10%, it would make sense. Some of these you could add them up and add 20%, and it still wouldn't be anywhere close to some of these that are just way up there.
Yeah, some of them are 5 times, 500%.
Seems like if you could look at maybe back 4 or 5 years and get an average, that would bring it down probably.
And that's also that there's extra there.
Yeah, yeah.
That much difference is just
Yeah.
more than 5 times more for that. Up above that, you got professional services, nothing than 11,000 in estimate, but the actual is less than 3,000.
Under utilities, towards the bottom, landfill. Is that having to take the sludge out of the ponds down to the landfill? Yeah, I assume that. Yeah. 44.
On long-term goals for T&D, the bullet about providing laptops for field personnel to log data. Could you tell me that in the way that laptop is used that way? I don't understand. Continue with upgrading the job costing and inventory control by providing laptops for field personnel to log data, inventory, and job costing.
I can
That's about
handle
the
it.
eighth or ninth line down.
What we're trying to do is right now what the guys do is they get a sheet and then they basically handwrite in what they've done, the inventory they've taken out, the material, the cost, and then it comes back into the system. They input it in. They hand input their own. Through that, there's job costing, there's time entry, and it's all kind of redundant. But first of all, handwriting, and then giving it. I think does Francisco still input it? He inputs it into the system by typing it in. And the other thought process was getting maps, getting information from the GIS system out to the guys, individuals, getting Tyler Technology financial or utility billing information out to them. And so one of our goals is to actually become either paperless and to get wireless information out to the guys out in the field so that they can they can input their own stuff out there. They can look at the information while they're sitting out there, and they can also bring up customer data and information out in the field.
Okay. Thank you.
And that may present itself ultimately as a tablet end-user device versus a computer, and I think that would be probably the smarter approach. And we do have a vision of getting full-blown GIS mapping integrated to our billing data, integrated into physical locations, and make it user-friendly for our staff. And we'll keep trying to reach that vision. It's not around the corner, but we're working on it.
Thank you.
I have a question at the end of long-term goals. Eliminate private pipelines. How many are there? Where are they? Why do they have them?
I'm glad you brought that up, Ward. I had that highlighted myself, and I've been in discussions with Neil and with Keith about private pipelines, and there's approximately 3 miles of pipeline scattered around the district. I think a great deal of it is galvanized material, if I'm not mistaken. And I've actually got intended to bring this forward as an agenda item either this month or next month. And Neil has drafted some draft language for revising the policy on that. And the reality of the situation is that presently it's just one of those situations, and every place I've ever worked has these oddball situations where a line was run less than perfectly. And in some cases, the owners of those lines don't even know they own those lines. The meter is at the end of the lines, just like it is on any of our streets that delivers water to any of our homes. But that section between the main and the meter is owned by the private individual. Oftentimes, as I said, unbeknownst to the individual. So in the past, when leaks occur on that line, we're going to go fix them because that's our water that's leaking, even though it's on their line. So it's really just a donut hole that needs to be closed, in my opinion, and for the hassle to maintain and upkeep those lines, my feeling is that we need to just take it in as our property, our infrastructure, and maintain it accordingly. And so we do have some tentative language that I'd like to bring back to the board for consideration and approval, hopefully, to go ahead and incorporate those lines into our district ownership and maintain that going forward. We basically do it now, de facto, but we'd like to make it formal. And there was one individual that brought a particular parcel to our attention and asked that we do just that, and it came down to they wanted to resell the property, and there was this unknown arrangement about ownership of infrastructure, and he was afraid it was going to lower the property value. So I think this is just happenstance oversight in the past that needs to be cleaned up. And it's galvanized line. That's line we need to replace, get out of our system anyway. So there's several reasons we should, I think, take this on and just accept that and formalize it and then maintain it going forward.
In the meantime, you're talking about ultimate pipe replacement and annexation or whatever. But in the meantime, do we have backflow preventers where we need them in those pipes along those
Another
pipes?
good reason to upgrade, I'm not sure, but I would guess no.
Okay.
I have a question. Major accomplishments, clean the sludge basins in the treatment plant. How often does that need to be done? Well, it's annually, yeah. The way it was put, yeah, the way it was worded in here, I thought maybe that was done more infrequently, but yeah, so it's just once annually.
I've seen those recently on a tour of the facilities, and they're probably a little undersized, but yeah, once a year is kind of a minimum to get those cleaned out to maximize the volume.
Thank you. Page 46.
What's the word at the end of the third item down there? And all is that supposed to be miscellaneous?
Yes.
Miscellaneous, yeah. I'm sure that Ann caught that one, so we'll...
No, I didn't catch that one.
I did. 47, any questions?
Well, let's see, outside services contracting, under outside services there, it spent $4,500, $3,800, and then all of a sudden the estimate's $25,700, and then the reality is $825. Just another example of, did we jump that one?
Yeah, we'll tighten that up, Ward. You know, again, these are estimates, and it's not money spent, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't tighten it up. So we will.
Yeah, because I've quit talking about it because I had that marked on every one of these. I've got 15 of them marked. So, 48.
There's a percent missing on the green thing in the bottom square.
Oh, yeah.
Just makes you get out your calculator and figure out what it is.
Outside services. Yeah.
49.
Do some
There's
math and
some
get it.
typos there. But
On 49, customer service, is that where the billing department comes under that? Customer service?
Yeah.
Okay, so for major accomplishments, should we talk about our new bill format that we rolled out?
you want to talk about that now?
No, I just
No.
want it added to
Oh,
this
got it.
major
Terrific.
accomplishment
Thank you.
list.
But the bottom line in that column should be indented where it says improvements. Is that a bullet item?
Yeah, it's a bullet item without a bullet.
Okay, then about the sixth thing down under major goals, continue to educate it, past tense, educate.
Getting to educate our customers on I don't like what
Yeah, oh yeah, I see, educated. Yes, that could be.
We
The one-
understand it perfectly, right?
I missed that one. Ann, did you miss that one too? I missed that one. Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
I missed that one.
It was getting late, I guess at night. 50?
A lot of blanks in there again.
51, yeah. I almost think that the green and the blue columns, are they switched? Is that right, wrong? It doesn't matter.
You want 51?
Yeah, on page, no, 50. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's not a critical item.
On page 51.
51.
Could you tell me whose salaries are under admin?
Excuse me.
The what?
Whose salaries are under admin? You?
Mine, Ad, sorry.
Whoa, that's a Freudian slip there.
Today I'm Kevin.
Yes.
Is the office manager under admin?
Manager's in there. Georgianne's in there. And then there is some percentages of others that do fall in there.
Okay.
How'd
Thank
the
you.
board,
Neil's in there.
how'd the board get up to 89,000?
Neil's in there?
Jeez, 40,000.
Thank you.
What do you put under board? It jumps all over the place from 86,000 to
Yeah, I had that.
23,000.
Well, because there were board members on the board taking benefits then.
Right.
Benefits, but also the big expense was
The election?
the recall itself.
Recall election. Okay.
Bottom item is board, and there's there's a note for 15, 16, and then there's a amount for every section after that.
We started.
Big difference again, 89 grand and actual 16, 17, and half of that for 17, 18 estimate, and then it drops to actual of 23, almost half of the 40,000 again there.
Yeah. What did it cut? The recall was what, 38,000?
61.
60. Yeah. No.
61, 65?
Yeah, it was up there.
Yeah, it was there.
It was expensive, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's right. The actual check to the county was 36,000 or something. At 38,000. 52?
Yeah, SWRCB. Which one, Bill or Jim? Water Administration? Thank you.
That's that new legend or whatever. The glossary that we got coming forward. 53. Yeah, I had my whole page is just marked up solid with the discrepancies again.
54, nobody can complain about page 50.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. That's crystal clear.
Intentionally left blank.
Yeah. 55.
Need some more humor right now. This is getting a little tiresome.
Yeah. Anything on 55? 56.
Okay, page 56.
56 we
For
got.
pipeline projects,
Huge number of differences.
Okay.
what's
Yes.
management and other project overhead of 237,000? What's that?
Jim and Keith and
Oh,
Francisco.
okay.
Just overhead per
Okay,
se.
thank you.
Yep.
So in staff salaries.
Bob just brought out back on 55, and I'm sure there's a good explanation for it. Hopefully it's because we're going to put more pipe in. But the very top line, the salaries for, it goes 89,371, 139, and projected for 1819 is almost 500,000. It's quadruples.
We're putting in quite a bit more of pipe, but
Right.
we're also going to be doing the AMR project that's going to be...
Got it. And that's what I had. I was hoping when I saw that it was extra pipe we're going to be slapping.
Aren't we halfway on
it, too.
AMR?
Yeah, we've got to be halfway now.
About half of all the...
We have quite...
We're like 2/3, 3/4 through.
80% through.
Yeah, I was going to say it's more
That's
than
even
that.
better news.
Pretty soon.
Yeah, so
Because we're really clipping along on that.
Just a heads up on that AMR too. You'll be seeing a proposal coming forward that we got a estimated budget from Zinner. I think it's a good time to talk about it. That we're going to start basically a 100% changeover to the Zinner product. This will give us a 100% changeover, but also we're going to eliminate infrastructure. So right now we have 11 gateways.
Mm-hmm.
13 active, 14 total, 13 active.
We're looking to go down to 8. 5, sorry.
Wow, they're going to be that strong.
Yeah, it's a stronger communication.
Good.
We'll likely reduce some of our repeaters. We have a little over 500 repeaters.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the exact number, but we'll certainly reduce some of those repeaters, and we're likely to reduce the amount of some of the enhanced repeaters as well. So there's just a level of how much data is sent from each one of these departments
Right.
and how it's sent. But the overall reduction will be pretty robust.
Is Zenner working with you on that? Do they come out and do any field? Yeah.
Yes, they're working very closely with us on
Nice.
that. They made the recommendation, and so we've had a few meetings with them, webinar teleconferences, and they mapped out a system and put it together for us. So we participate with them in performing some of the labor. They'll have to have one of their representatives for sure, one of their engineers, to dial everything in, but most of the labor part will be.
Yeah, we've done the vast majority. That's the royal we, that would be these guys, have installed the new MIUs. MIUs? MIUs. We don't call them fireflies anymore. That's the old technology. As Jim was saying, we're about 80 or plus more percent done with that. But the conversion, the actual switch over to go live, they will be here on site to help us, assist us with that part of the process. So when he says we've participated in the labor, we've been the labor. So
I'm just shocked as hilly as we are here that 5 would handle it.
Well, that's part of the long discussions we've had with them is how to implement that switch over, and we're going to do it in such a way that we're over covered, and then we pull back incrementally until we know we have full coverage with the minimum number of repeaters.
Great.
56, I think we're on. Any questions?
I already got mine asked and answered.
57, typos. 58.
There's no estimates, they're all actual.
Well, it's real easy to. No, that's backwards, isn't it? Yeah, I was going to say it's real easy to hit it if you don't have.
The last one should be the estimate.
Yeah, except for the last year, you're right.
The last one's the
Or
estimate.
this
All
year's
the rest
budget.
are actual.
And a large part of that is the B-Res project.
Yeah,
The
the
B-Res,
B-Res.
yeah, it has to be. You're right. 59. Okay, well, I had a question clear on the right. Second item down is the 100,000 for the process water recycle, but you explained that earlier, so.
It's MPDS permit renewal.
60? I'm sure DCBM is misspelled.
It's spelled differently here. One way is right, the other isn't.
DCBM fluctuates with time.
Dichlorobromo.
Actually, I think that can be said either way. Is that not correct, Jim Patsanisi?
Either way.
Yeah, that's actually accurate, said either way.
No, it doesn't need to be.
Well, maybe not in the same paragraph, but it is acceptable either way.
So you can drop off a mo.
There's a word for that where you can, the same word is spelled differently but means the same thing, and I don't know what that word is, but that's what this is.
Synonym.
Prevo mentioned that he didn't understand the CEQA to the CEQA.
Yeah.
And so maybe there are places where when you know that there are certain initials that work for certain things, you spell the word out once and
Right.
use the initials the rest of the time.
Yes.
Right.
Everybody understands the dichloromet, DCBM. Wait, was it DC? That's bad keys. BM.
No, forget.
So we might find it easier to skip words like this, except for one spelling with the initials that go with the same thing with MPDES permit. We have a lot of those in here. Not that I'm trying to save you ink or something, but most of us can figure out, okay, I read it once, now I'm reading the initials, that's fine.
Did you overhear our sidebar? Because I just said that.
Yeah.
I'm all for saving ink and paper when you can, Part of resource conservation.
Page 61. Some blanks in there too, but 62.
62.
6,000 foot of transmission line.
Not feet.
What page are you on?
Yeah,
now? Where?
Oh, I did 62, fourth line down. I've got that also. 6,000 foot transmission line, not feet transmission line, but that's one of the typos that I was going to talk to Kevin about.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had a question about project spending plan. First, I thought that we had paid more than 525, but maybe it was billed in this fiscal year after June 30th. Because I thought we were up to 600 and something, 83 or.
We are, yeah. It didn't get updated.
This wasn't
for
billed. Okay, thank you.
Schedule here, yeah. But you're exactly right.
That's all.
63.
Yeah, I have a question. Why do we want to increase the reliability of an old steel pipe? That doesn't make sense.
By replacing it with good pipe, yep. That's an interesting way of saying we're going to put good pipe in the ground.
Should be improve reliability. It's a new pipe. It's obviously improved.
Well, if you're putting in new pipe, the steel pipe becomes obsolete, doesn't it?
That's left behind.
Yes, just leave out old steel. How about increased reliability of pipeline?
There you are. There you are.
And also, I noticed at the top.
Take the steel out of the street, right? Don't we leave it?
Yeah.
Generally speaking, yes. The A-zone and generator is the heading for this, and it's the Almond Street pipeline. I think that's a typo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's just kind of like recuperating asphalt. It's
Kind of like rehabilitating.
yeah. 64.
Well, now this one really puzzles me, the project spending plan. I understand spending money to plan, spending money for design, and spending money for construction. But if you skip design, how do you go from spending $339,000 for planning right up to spending $450,000 for construction and no money for design?
Yeah, something got it kind of switched there. You see what he's saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the bottom it says we started design September 1st last year. Where are we?
No, it
Are we
doesn't.
ready to spend $450,000?
Now that's all kind of that whole thing is kind of blended incorrectly. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think where it references design, it should be an extension of planning because there's been no design done.
Right.
And yeah, there should be some money apportioned for further planning.
We understand the intent of the whole thing. It's just some of it's kind of put in the wrong place.
Well, I was going to say, I'm really encouraged if you're only spending $450,000 for spillway.
It's a placeholder.
We'll take it.
Don't be
Sold.
Don't feel too good about that.
Yeah, as your comment says, have you developed a mitigation plan and design yet?
I'm sorry,
The
Bob.
spillway?
No, it's still being.
Well, you say you're going to develop a mitigation plan and design, which I guess is going to cost you how much?
We don't know yet.
You don't know?
It's somewhat of an unknown. They've just completed the phase 1 of the planning process. It's an investigation of the existing infrastructure to assess needs. And they've submitted that. The consultant, Gentera, has submitted that to DCBM?
DSOD.
Forget it. It's the California regulators.
Department Division of Safety.
Division of Dam Safety, or Safe.
Yeah, OSD.
The SOD.
Division. They have not yet commented in response, so we're awaiting. It's in their court at this
We
point.
paid for them.
Gosh, I was
$450,000.
getting pretty good at that. I really stumbled there.
Okay, they're coming up
Yeah.
with all that has to be done now. So that whole thing is a little bit
Every state
crooked there.
acronym for the regulators. Did that answer your question, Bob?
Sure does, thank you.
Okay.
65, 66.
Okay, this one.
Ann's got a comment.
I won't be saying too much, but these are the 3 pipeline replacement projects that highlight fire safety.
Okay. I guess this one's carrying over to 67 is, I noticed this project is split with the fire department hydrant fund, but the next one isn't.
Yeah, so Neil could probably answer that.
Yeah.
I know the fire department, PFD, I know has all basically bought into that Lower Skyway one. I don't think that we've had buy-in on the other ones.
On
but
Pence
I'll let
Road?
No, the Lower Skyway project is top priority for Paradise Fire Department. And it definitely is something that is a wildland urban interface major impact. The Pence Road project is more a PID impact. We have only one pipeline that basically serves water to about 1,000 of our customers in that southeast section of town. If that one pipeline is offline, those 1,000 customers, or most of them, going to be without water or with service. It's going to be extremely limited. That kind of lack of redundancy in our system is pretty dangerous because things happen to pipelines, and when they cease functioning, we don't really want to leave 1,000 customers high and dry, pun intended. So that would be the difference in this one. It probably will have some fire flow impacts as well, but it won't be a massive impact like the Lower Skyway one, which is one that Paradise Fire would like to fund jointly with PID.
Neil, while you're up there, so for my education and maybe some other folks' education, are you PID's representative on the committee that ranks projects or approves projects for that set-aside fund?
I don't know that there
Loaded
is really
question.
a committee
Sorry.
per se right now. We
That's our
actually had a
committee.
fairly long hiatus where there were no projects that were jointly funded. The Crestview Crestwood project, I think, is the first project that's been. Well, no, I take that back. We did do the Country Club project
Yeah.
jointly last year,
Right.
but prior to that, we had several years where there were no jointly funded projects built with PFD, and it kind of. Well, in that interim where there were no projects built, Paradise Fire Department actually went through some changes. They started using CAL FIRE as their contract fire department. So when they did that, they kind of backed away from some of the staffing that really was more interested in pushing this kind of joint funding. So it kind of fell on kind of hard times for a while. In the same time frame, PID was building its corporation yard and so forth. So it kind of fell by the wayside, and now that program has been restarted, and we've got the Country Club project finished last year, Crestview Crestwood under construction this year, and both of those are joint
But
projects.
that's a joint funding, joint pot of money, if you will. And can you help educate me about how that's
Well,
prioritized and approved?
I'm just kind of, this is, it was my understanding that periodically when there is a Town of Paradise Liaison Committee that I actually chair, and Norm Mark's on it, and so it's periodically when the Town of Paradise and PID have joint ventures, then we have a meeting and by committee, and we approved all those projects and then brought it to the board for approval, and that's how it got done.
And those monies are at that time allocated to those projects?
Yes.
Kind of agree
How to
in
spend
that
it.
meeting.
Between the town and us?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
okay. Thank you.
And then we can't dovetail any increased capacity or replacement of hydrants or for fire flows into this Pence Road?
I think the aspect of redundancy, like you say, if we have a vulnerability of loss of service, then that's certainly a fire issue.
Yeah.
It is. Whether we can sell Paradise Fire
Okay.
on parting with some of their valuable hydrant fund to co-fund this or not is another question. But since you're actively involved in working with
I'll lobby. Well, that's
If you want us to have a meeting, we'll call a meeting.
So you're saying 1,000 customers or 1,000 services?
1,000 service connections.
So that's like that's like a third of the 3,000 people then probably.
Yeah, I think the multiplier is down to like 2.6 or 2.5 now, but yes.
So I just need to get all 3,000 people there at that meeting.
That'll help.
Okay, thanks.
If you have
Thanks, Neil.
questions about the Skyway A zone, you can ask Neil too while he's up there.
But the Pence Road one also includes the hospital, correct?
Yes, that project.
Oh, yeah.
That project would begin
There
up
we go.
near the hospital at Fickett Lane,
Yeah.
which is just to the south of the hospital, and would continue from there south to basically the zone break at Stearns. So it would strengthen the hospital campus minimally, but it would provide additional fire protection there. But it would strengthen that corridor along the east side significantly from the hospital south. So if there were some kind of major wildland fire that were to come into town, like we're going to be doing in this tabletop exercise tomorrow, this project would help with that.
That's the emphasis. The emphasis needs to be put on fire, fire, fire. In the town's a whole lot more.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, appreciate it.
Any
you.
questions on the next one?
I don't, but what I was going to say along with that, and I think it's clear now, is I do agree that in our future planning for pipeline replacement, we do need to try to put greatest emphasis on these lacking fire zone areas. Even if there are more leaks in some other one up in the upper end of town or whatever, we maybe need to be putting the greater emphasis down in these areas. So anyway, okay, what were you saying?
I was going to see if you had a question about the Skyway pipeline project. Because I was going to...
Okay, that's page 68 then, yes.
Yeah. So I was going to have Neil stay up there if you had a question.
I don't.
Okay.
69. Again, the only one I highlighted is a $10,000 high-pressure washer. Yikes. Okay.
Yeah.
Page 70, anything? 71. 2 and 3.
I've got a question here because if you take $244. You get $244,324.70.
Say that one more time.
Same thing on the next page. If you add the 283, 201.33 times 2, you don't get $516,300, which is the state payment in the.
I'm on.
What page are you on? I'm lost. What page?
Right here, 72, 73, both. See, technically this budget item should be two
Is that supposed to be 5?
things, but you add up two payments, doesn't
Yeah.
equal that.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So it
Okay.
doesn't
I guess
equal
he's
that.
saying 2 times this,
Yeah, it should
not
be
equal
2.
that. Same here.
Well, you add up, the 122. Well, one will be in one half of the year, the other will be the other half.
Yeah, right, but they're both within that calendar, fiscal year,
Yeah.
yeah.
Doesn't this loan have, where you're paying off most of the interest up front? That's why the principal doesn't go down?
So he's saying on this one we would pay.
Yeah, it is interesting how that principal fluctuates the
November
amount that
and
it does.
May, so 244.
But
I'll have to look at that.
Oh, yeah, so about $300, $500 off.
Might be off.
Not a big deal, it's just,
Yeah,
That might be off. It's gonna be. It's gonna be.
and
more
this
of
one
these.
too. This one's exactly the same.
I'll look at that. There might be some bug in there because it's going to be these two payments.
Right, right.
11 and that.
You're looking at the right thing there, Ward, on your far column on the right, but it looks like it sort of Excel error on the total. Good catch.
these two,
We'll figure that out.
two for that year should equal that, and doesn't. These two for here
Yeah,
should
the other
equal-
one, yeah, they don't equal.
Doesn't.
That's true.
And they're not a huge amount off, but unless there's some kind of other factor built into it.
Something in the program, in the
Should be
Excel
interest and
spreadsheet.
principal.
All right, that's the last page.
Ta-da.
Yes, you can.
You're done.
Now, any other,
I want to collect all yours if that's okay, so I can have your edits.
you know what? May I take 1 minute with Ann and share my?
Well, I'll just work
You
through
just do
each
it?
one.
Okay.
Each one of yours.
Okay, no, that's fine. Pardon? Oh, yes. Yeah, I just said that we're done with that. We're not leaving.
4
yet.
years ago at this time, Director Hunt had accused me of being
Obnoxious?
a little sassy, sort of, because I had found 2 typos and bad grammar in a slide during a regular board meeting. And he said, he had this in his hand, he said, well, you think you're so smart, you start proofreading this and we'll see how you do. After the draft budget meeting, then he complimented me on how well I did. I counted 2 more than he did in just the first 13 pages, of which there were over 20. Mostly grammar, punctuation, spelling, sentence structure, and those sort of things. I don't see where this one has got us any better than we've been over the last 4 years. There's just an awful lot of that kind of stuff. I'm a member of the public. I'm not sharing this with anybody else. I love how great this place is. I do. But I don't want the public to know that we've made a $100,000 mistake in something. Because what do they think after that? Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Can you take it to your wife to proofread, maybe, Kevin, or something like that? No, I'm kidding.
We'll get there.
Any other
This
comments?
is the first draft. This is
Any,
where we're supposed
yeah,
to catch all
this
the
is
errors.
the next one's going to be all fixed and it's going to be gorgeous. Any other comments from board members, audience? We are adjourned. 2:03. Wow, not too bad.